Let's start with this today's panel discussion on funds up. So this program is jointly organized by On Charity, SaasBoomi Surat, and the Southern Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Surat. So jointly जो organize किया है, I welcome our President Shri Himanshu Bodawala, our Bhavesh Taylor, Honorary Secretary, our Treasurer Mr. Bhavesh Ghatia, Group Chairman Deepak Shetwala, and Startup and Innovation Committee Chairman Shri Mayank Desai, my co-chairman Rajesh Maheshwari, and myself Puneet Gajera from again co-chairman of Startup Innovation Committee. So I welcome you all. I really give you assurity, that अगले 2 घंटे आप अच्छे से spend करोगे, and you will really learn about how startups and आज के तो दोनों टॉपिक है journey from 0 to 1. That is a really important to build a product from idea to a PMF stage, and metrics behind the startup. So yes, not taking much more time, and I welcome our President Shri Himanshu Bodawala for welcome address. Thank you.
First of all, I am very much sorry for the delay because we had a very urgent meeting with the Standing Committee Chairman Sri Paresh Bhai and all the dignitaries of Surat, all the stalwarts of Surat of business for the program हर घर चंदा. और आपको भी मैं यहाँ से अनुरोध करना चाहता हूँ कि आप जहाँ पे भी जुड़े हैं, जिसके साथ जुड़े हैं, 13 अगस्त और से 15 अगस्त तक आप आपके इंस्टीट्यूशन, गर्ल्स या जो भी एसोसिएशन से जुड़े हैं, सबको आप एनकरेज करिए कि ये 3 दिन अब मैं अपने घर पे या इंस्टीट्यूशन पे अपना तिरंगा लहराना है. सो आई विल स्टार्ट माय वेलकम एड्रेस. माय कलीग सेक्रेटरी भावेश भाई टेलर, भावेश भाई गड़िया ट्रेजरर, मयंक भाई देसाई, राजेश भाई, पुनीत भाई, दीपक भाई सेठवाला, and all the present here. I will take this honor to welcome our allied dignitaries. Sri Pratik Gadia, founder and CEO Yan Bazaar. Sri Agam Shah, founder and CEO PlusShiv.in. Sri Kulin Shah, co-founder On Surety. Sri Manoj Chadwani, founder Bisomia. Sri Sunbat Jalori, Senior Associate, Whiteboard Capital. Sri Kashyap Pandya, Co-Chairman, Startup and Innovation Committee. Sri Puneet Gajera, Co-Chairman, Startup and Innovation Committee. Mayank Bhai Desai, and all the dignitaries present here. The startup ecosystem consists of 4 main components, and within which the first and the foremost is the existence of a problem. A startup is basically providing solution to the existing problem and tries to provide product or a service to address the problem. Once these two are established, solution, that is solution seeker and solution provider, how synergy can be established between these two and the design of the delivery mechanism needs to be established. The role of different subcomponents of startup ecosystem comes into the play. There are startup incubators, mentors, angel funders, VC firms, angel investors, and different facilitators. And all these things has to be carried out within an environment which has regulator in place. So the perfect coordination of all the subcomponents of a startup ecosystem is necessary for a startup to flourish and become successful. Government of Gujarat has come up with first startup policy in the year 2015, whereas Government of India through DIPP has made it in the year 2016. Therefore, Gujarat has been ahead of the nation when it comes to startup. In continuation of this tradition, Gujarat has been consistently awarded first rank by Government of India in development of startup ecosystem since last 3 years. Friends, India has the largest startup ecosystem in the world. India has now third largest ecosystem in the world. We are the third largest ecosystem in the world. Almost every state is playing its role in developing ecosystem across India. We have seen many unicorns being developed from Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, etc. But unfortunately, Gujarat is yet to join this unicorn bandwagon. As Chamber, we want to fill this gap of Gujarat in the India startup story. Surat is the second largest city of Gujarat and eighth largest of India. As a chamber, we are committed to develop entire startup ecosystem in Surat, and we are regularly organizing series of programs which will inspire every facets of the ecosystem. Today, this program is a part of this resolution of our chamber. I am sure that the participants to this program be able to connect themselves to subject explored during the upcoming panel discussion, and it will enlighten them to do more in the sphere of startup. So friends, I once again welcome all of you to this wonderful panel discussion on funds up for startup. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Vande Mataram.
Thank you, our Honorable President Shri Manshu Bodawala. So I recently been witness in Digital India Week to 2022, which is happened at Gandhinagar Mahatma Mandir, and PM has addressed and declare this decade as a decade. So now government slogan is not decade, but this is a decade, and this era is of technology and startups. So government is really promising for the startup, which is rightly said by the Himanshu Bodawala. So thank you. Now next, I would like to invite again Himanshu Bhai again to facilitate for our guests. So yes, Mr. Kulin Shah will be facilitated by our President Himanshu Bodawala. So I request him with memento and bouquet. I request Mr. Agam Shah on board, and Mr. Bhavesh Taylor will facilitate them. Our Honorable Secretary Bhavesh Bhai will facilitate Agam Shah. Agam Shah, please welcome on the stage. I request Mr. Pratik Gedia to come on stage, and Bhavesh Gadia, Honorable Treasurer, will facilitate them. I request Mr. Naman Sarogi on stage, and Deepak Shetwala, Group Chairman, will facilitate them. Deepak Bhai. Naman. I request Mr. Subodh Jalori to come on stage, and Mr. C.A. Mayank Desai will facilitate them. Mayank Desai is Chairman of Startup and Innovation Committee in Chamber. I request Manoj Chadwani come on stage, and Mr. Rajesh Maheshwari, Co-Chairman Startup and Innovation Committee, will facilitate them. I request Mr. Bhuvan Vijayawat for come on stage, and I myself will facilitate them.
Very active co-chairman.
So thank you all the dais and guests. Yes, I now come on stage Mr. Rajesh Maheshwari for introduction of guest, a very small introduction of every guest. So yes, Rajesh bhai, come on stage.
मैं लकी हूँ कि मुझे आज इतनी अच्छी प्रोफाइल वाला उनका इंट्रोडक्शन देने का मौका मिल रहा है. कोई इंट्रोडक्शन में गलती तो मैं क्षमा चाहूँगा. सबसे पहले मैं जो आज के कार्यक्रम अपने 0 से 1 जो हम लोग आज जर्नी करने वाले इस कार्यक्रम में, तो मिस्टर कुलीन शाह recognized as a best tech for health 2021. OnSurate is India's first monthly subscription-led employee healthcare platform purely focused on SME and emerging businesses. आगमवार शाह, ये जैन फैमिली अहमदाबाद से बिलोंग करते हैं, LNT में काम कर चुके हैं. और मैं इनके इंट्रोडक्शन में एक चीज़ मुझे विशेष इंटरेस्टिंग लगी. 2500 बुक, 2500 किताबें इनके घर पे हैं और बहुत ये पढ़ने में इंटरेस्टेड रहते हैं. मिस्टर प्रतीक गाड़िया, फाउंडर एंड CEO द यान बाजार, मारवाड़ी फैमिली से बिलोंग करते हैं. और आपको मालूम है कि टेक्सटाइल मार्केट हमारा अनऑर्गेनाइज है, तो उस अनऑर्गेनाइज मार्केट को कैसे ऑर्गेनाइज करें B2B बिजनेस प्लेटफॉर्म पे, तो बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं मिस्टर प्रतीक गाड़िया. और नमन सरावगी is the founder of reference.com, a market network for freelancer and service agencies. He has been part of early team of at FreeCharge and ZipDial. He is also an active angel investor with over 20 plus investment. Subodh Jalari. Subodh has been a venture capital industry for last 3 years. He has worked with more than 25 companies across multiple sectors. He now works at Whiteboard Capital. मनोज आडवाणी 15 साल से टेक्नोलॉजी में काम कर रहे हैं, इंडिया और सिंगापुर में काम कर चुके हैं और स्टार्टअप का बहुत अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस है, कॉर्पोरेट का भी बहुत अच्छा एक्सपीरियंस है और इंडिविजुअल कैपेसिटी एज ए वॉलंटियर फॉर सूरत चैप्टर ऑफ ईच हाई स्टार्टअप. भुवन बीजावत. भुवन इज करंटली ए टेक इन्वेस्टर एट नेक्सस वेंचर पार्टनर और वो IIT कानपुर से भी उन्होंने B.Tech किया हुआ है. थैंक यू.
Thank you Rajesh bhai for wonderful introduction. And now yes, we are moving for the panel discussion. So yes, I thank you office bearers to be seated here and invite the panel discussion. So first panel discussion is journey from 0 to 1, and I request come on stage Mr. Kulin Shah, Mr. Agam Shah, Mr. Pratik Kedia and Mr. Naman Sarogi.
So, thank you everyone, and thank you Himanshu sir, Mayank sir, and Rahul sir, and Puneet bhai. Very excited to be out here. I've spent the last 14 years in the startup ecosystem, and when our head of marketing Samar told me that Surat has such a vibrant startup ecosystem, especially on the tech side, I think it was an overnight no-brainer decision that we have to come out here and get the opportunity to meet all of you and share our experiences and learn from you that what we can do better in what we are building. So and then obviously share our journey, and hoping that the next time we'll have the Surat startup team out here and we'll be sitting out there and listening to your feedback. So looking forward to that. Today's topic 0 to 1. What does it really mean, right? It means about when that idea came to you, how you made up your mind to go for it, and your journey to getting either your first customer or launching your product, or even failing, which is okay, right? Because failure is just another outcome and it's nothing to kind of worry about. And I think that's what I learned from my first startup in 2014 when we failed. But after that, I had a great journey with Freecharge, I had a great journey with Acco, and now we are doing Onsurity, which is India's first and only monthly health subscription platform for SMEs for their employees. I won't sell Onsurity to all of you. I will actually just request all the panelists to kind of take 1 minute to introduce yourself and what is that problem statement that you are solving, and then it will help us to set the context for the next round of questions.
But first of all, what is 0 to 1? Let us make it that concept clear.
So, my definition of 0 to 1 is from the time that you started thinking about your product, your more than product, the problem statement, right? When we started thinking that, and then I'll tell you in the context of Onsurity, we said everyone is solving for SME lending, everyone is solving for SME payments, but then who's really solving for SME's employees, right? Now there are multiple problems. So we said, hey, health is one of the biggest problems, right? And after that COVID started, so it kind of, obviously made sense to start that. But right from thinking about it to having set up the first initial team which will then go and help you execute the idea, take that idea to people, take their feedback, build further and get possibly your first customer, your first 100 customers, right? And what is that learning that you get out there, right? The learning that you get that, oh, this works, this does not work. And believe me, in that journey there are moments when you want to give up. There are moments in that journey when you want to say, Arey, why did I start this? I should have started that, because 10 people came and told you, Arey, ye kyun kar rahe ho? Wo problem solve karo, right? And you are just not able to focus on what you are really building, right? And then if you have, the pressures to do fundraising, you will have the pressure saying that, Arey, aaj paisa khatam ho raha hai, kal payroll karna hai karke, right? All of these experiences, is 0 to 1, and 0 to 1 is not time bound. For example, your company can be $100 million company, but some of the functions within your company are 0 to 1 because they have still not put the processes in place. They are still trying to understand how they need to kind of, come up. What is that product market fit that, Puneet, you mentioned, right? What is that product market fit for that function? So 0 to 1 is a continuous journey. For example, when Microsoft will launch a new product, for that product, it's a 0 to 1 journey. Right? When SDCCI will launch another branch, right, that will be a 0 to 1 journey for you, right? And I think that is the beauty of 0 to 1, that it never ends. But obviously the learnings from others and your own learnings will help you. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Pratik Gadia. As I was introduced earlier, I was born in a stereotype Marwadi family where we had a family business in fabric manufacturing and wholesaling. So that's how I got exposed to the problem statement in textile industry, and that's how the journey of the Yarn Bazaar started. So the idea of the Yarn Bazaar is we are creating a e-sourcing solution where we are helping small yarn manufacturers increase the capacity utilization, thereby increasing the sales, and helping yarn buyers find the right quality at fair market prices and timely delivery.
Hello everyone, I am Naman. I am from Surat for the last 5 years. So this is my second startup. I am running a company called Reference. We are building a market network for freelancers and agencies. So this is B2B freelancers that we focus on. And a market network is basically a SaaS platform where all the vendors also connect with each other and they help each other grow. The problem that we are solving is that of trust. If you hire a designer, whether it's like a logo designer or whether you hire, say, an investment banker, the trust between the client and the vendor is very, very low, right? And that trust, does not let the transaction happen. The lack of trust does not let the transaction happen. So we are trying to build a network where everybody is vouched for from somebody else in the network, and that is how you can trust them, saying, will the quality be on time? Is the pricing okay? Will this really be delivered, etc. We have about 2 lakh users on the platform today from possibly every country in the world. 70% of users are from India. As I said, this is my second startup. Previous startup exited in 2016. I was part of early team at Freecharge where I took the product from 0 to 1. Then I was part of another company called ZipDial that got acquired by Twitter. Again, part of the 0 to 1 journey there. And yeah, I've invested in about 20 startups. And most of this is investing is like really expensive hobby, honestly. पैसा वापस आएगा नहीं आएगा पता नहीं अभी तो, but get to learn a lot because some of these startups are growing at a faster rate that I've seen in the past. So it's a great learning experience कि वो 20 founders के साथ आप एक WhatsApp group पे अगर कुछ भी interact कर रहे हो तो सीखने को बहुत मिलता है.
Hi, good evening. I'm Agam Shah. First of all, thank you so much for hosting and inviting me. I'm from Ahmedabad. I'm from Surat Bulwari. Surat is so like warm and a very great welcome. But I am actually from a particular industry which is very unique and very rare. We are into augmented reality startup, but we have a video calling technology that detects a person's face, augmented reality inside the video call, and we are catering to the jewelry retail customers and jewelry brands, so wherein they can give that particular services to their clients, and when they are showing the particular product on a click of a button, the client can wear jewelry on themselves right inside the video call. The problem that we are solving is that usually e-commerce of electronics is now, it has reached to a very good level, but e-commerce for jewelry is actually stuck at certain places. They are still struggling to see the result because the buyers wanted some feel of how it will look on themselves. The try and buy model, everybody was trying something, but then there was a need of a guided shopping as well. So the virtual try-on did not solve that purpose. Now the video call had to solve it. So we had a video call with augmented reality on top of it, and now we are serving around 280 subscribers, and it's also a SaaS-based business model. And we are growing, as also Kling said, there is 0 to 1 journey for every smallest part of it. So it's like just even if we talk about the smallest marketing campaign, that is itself, there is a 0 to 1 journey for that as well. We don't know whether it is going to reach to that level 1 or it will just die at level 0 or not. So we keep experimenting every day, and that's a 0 to 1 journey, not only as an organization, but even the smallest of the ideas or initiatives that we take. So yeah, at Plushvi, we do the same. Yeah, Plushvi is our brand name.
And now that everyone has spoken about their product, I'll take 1 minute to talk about Onsurity also. I'm wearing my sales hat right now. We basically have created a sachet kind of a product for employee health benefits, which includes right from teleconsultations to group health insurance to group personal accident. We started in August of 2020. We work at about 3,000 odd companies now. We have about 3 lakh users, and we work with right from startups to even traders, distributors, restaurant partners. So we're trying to empower people to attract and retain talent. And a lot of founders and promoters out here will know that if someone gets sick in your company, you normally give out a medical loan, which is an expensive one. But Onsurity is trying to solve that problem, one company at a time. And we guys started 145 rupees per month per employee. We got at least 3 to 4 customers in this group right now out here. So yes. And now moving on to the panel 0 to 1. My first question, guys, what is the problem statement that you were thinking of when you started your journey? And I don't want to ask you that what inspired you to start, but what were those factors that dissuaded you, right? Like that said, nahi yaar, nahi chalu karte hain, right? But you still started. So at least 1 or 2 reasons, or 1 or 2 things that dissuaded you. We'll start with you, Agam, and then we'll go down.
Sure. Okay, so mine is a very interesting journey. I was working with L&T. So to answer the second question first, what dissuaded you was my package. The biggest challenge to overcome was the package to actually venture into it. Everybody was like, क्या चाहिए जिंदगी में, क्यों छोड़ रहा है ये, इतना सब कुछ चल रहा है. And then so that was the biggest challenge to overcome from family everywhere. We are also from a family background, so I cannot take a decision without taking them into confidence. So that was one of the things. And as they always say that the salary is the biggest bribe given to you to forget all your dreams. So, but then that after complete homework, after a lot of efforts, research, parallel background and everything done, I was thinking that this is a perfect plan. Yes, 24 months I'll be here. And guess what? 3 months down the line, everything vanished. And that happens with every startup, right? You have a plan. But we were thinking of a particular problem statement. This story is very interesting. My colleague actually he got engaged, उनका रोका हुआ था, and then उसके बाद वो उनका birthday आ रहा था, his fiance's birthday, and he wanted to buy a good nice ring. He bought it from a local store, and then it happened to be fake. He bought a real diamond ring, and it happened to be a fake diamond. And then there was a very big issue around it. Somebody there was like, this is a fake, you gave a fake ring and all those like that. And then since I knew a little about jewelry, he came to, we both of us were together on that. And then we solved that issue, came to know about it that this is a kind of an unorganized retail as well. Jewelry is a very reputed industry, a very trustworthy industry, but at times it is also unorganized and there is no standardization in terms of buying it, and that needs certain touch of e-commerce or digitalization. We started with that idea. We built an e-commerce marketplace and we built a website. Like a dream of every startup founder, हम वेबसाइट बना देंगे और 2 महीने में like a magic wand बहुत सारे orders आने शुरू हो जाएंगे. We had that particular idea. 4 months down the line, 0 orders. So then we came to know that the problem statement that we were actually thinking about is actually half. Problem statement वहाँ पे अटकता ही नहीं है. There's not we did not solve the problem in full. We got to know that e-commerce is not just the idea. We need to provide a look and feel, the touch of that. The augmented reality also needed to happen. So that problem statement also get augmented on top of it. So एक problem statement के बाद दूसरा एक problem मिला जिसको हमने solve करा. And during lockdown everything changed. तो वहाँ से एक तीसरा problem निकल के आया कि we need to provide all these services to the B2B. We became a B2B SaaS startup, and now we are solving to all the jewelry retailers, not just by a marketplace, but by providing this technology to all the jewelers themselves. So my particular take in here since last 3 years is एक problem statement when we started वो वहीं के वहीं नहीं रहता है. It keeps evolving. As we go much deeper into it, we know that the problem is not the one that we looked at. It is much deeper, and we need to keep updating ourselves, keep pivoting ourselves, and then come to a root cause of the problem and solve it. That's what we are doing right now.
You moved from marketplace to B2B solution.
We've added it to it.
So you are still in the marketplace also?
Yes.
Naman.
So I started this current venture full time from 2018, and right before that I was consulting with a lot of startups. So 2016 onwards, whatever I was investing and got introduced to a lot of founders, was consulting them. Somewhere during that consultancy is where I realized कि freelancers का market कितना बड़ा है या problems क्या है, because I was acting as a freelancer when I'm a consultant. Sometimes I'm on a board of a public company called E2E Networks. So when I'm helping that founder find a freelancer or an agency for certain work, I'm acting almost like the client, and at times I'm also acting like a broker in between, say, trying to convince both the parties. So that is where we found the problem statement. But problem दिख रहा था, solution बहुत direct नहीं था, and we were, for the first 1 year, I think we were beating around the bush with respect to our solution. ये कर लेते हैं क्योंकि इधर funding मिल रही है. We started chasing payment gateway, because that looked like a very nice market. We started thinking about insurance because and I met Kulin when he was at Echo saying यार freelancers के लिए insurance करते हैं क्योंकि इनको कोई कुछ नहीं बेचता है. और फिर वही lot of problems around this same target audience, but we couldn't really say कि यार ये solution हम लोग बेचना चाहते हैं market में, and this is the only problem that we'll focus on. This two things: A, we were getting carried away by what the market is talking about. Sometimes we were getting carried away by what looked like a open opportunity, instead of saying कि यार इधर already enough crowd है, so let's not focus on that. The reality was that there was crowd, but nobody was really solving that problem. सबको problem दिख रहा था, बहुत लोग कूद चुके थे solve करने के लिए, कोई solve नहीं कर रहा था. We were staying away just because we thought there is a crowd, and I think that held us for about 1.5 years. But after few users started coming in and there were feature requests from users, we thought कि ये direction सही है क्योंकि कुछ तो बनाया है जो users use कर रहे हैं और वो लोग और भी कुछ demand कर रहे हैं, यानी कि they trust us for delivering for their problem. So that is where we thought we are on the right path.
So I've met a lot of startup founders who are very data driven. They look at multiple problem statements, they look at the different opportunities, and then they finally zero down to one opportunity they want to explore. My journey was not at all like this. Like I mentioned earlier, family business है fabrics में. So it's a fairly small business where our average order in terms of fabric orders used to be like 5-10 lakh rupees or so. And this is around 2018, like mid 18, when I was struggling to get a large order. When finally we got a massive, large export order. So the order was to be supplied to a garment exporter. And what customized order tha, it was the single order was worth about 1 crore or more. So we procured yarn, made the fabric dyeing ho gaya, jo kapda finishing hota hai. After that realized ki yarn was faulty. And because वो customized exporter का make to order था, I mean we were in bad trouble because it's very difficult to get rid of that inventory. Finally वो ठीक है, वो problem solved हो गया, but that's when I realized कि this has been there in the industry for forever. But what happens is, as part of the business, we feel कि ये धंधा ऐसे ही होता है, it's part of the business. But that was a big wake up call for me, and that's how the idea of Yarn Bazaar came up to kind of streamline this broken supply chain problem. Now, your second question regarding internet, I think when I came up with this idea, I spoke to my dad that I want to quit family business, start working on this, and he was very clear कि ये सब क्या होता है, ऐसा चलेगा ही नहीं. Textile में कौन online payment करेगा, online धंधा करेगा. Started meeting buyers and suppliers, potential buyers, suppliers. Everybody said no. In fact, SGCCI does a yarn exhibition every year called Yarn Expo. I came down to Surat for the Yarn Expo. Got an opportunity to meet with a lot of textile companies who had exhibited for this exhibition. Most of them said no, but I think as a founder, once you have a vision and once you have a clarity of that commitment to that vision, I think nothing stops you, and you just have to start, and finally, ultimately, you embark on that journey.
Awesome.
Once again, Yarn Expo is coming.
ये sponsor करेंगे.
We'll be there for sure.
Thank you all.
So, Pradeep, I think hope you have noted the date down. So, हमारी स्टार्टअप जर्नी में ना सबके पास एक ओपिनियन होता है, फैमिली से लेके फ्रेंड्स, पीपल हु आर नॉट इवन रिलेटेड टू द स्टार्टअप, उनके पास भी एक ओपिनियन होता है, सब सजेशंस देते हैं, राइट? तो आई एम श्योर कि आपके जर्नीज में भी लोगों ने बहुत सारा ओपिनियन दिया होगा आपके ई कॉमर्स पे, आपके वीआर पे, आपके पूरे प्लेटफॉर्म के आइडिया पे, तुम्हारा पूरा पेमेंट्स एंड ऑल ऑफ दोज थिंग्स, राइट? तो how did you filter the noise? How did you say that अरे मुझे तो ये करना है भले कोई कुछ भी बोल दे करके, but आपका what was तुम्हारा शू रही वो experience?
I have been receiving a lot of feedbacks from day one, especially for this jewelry industry when even we started the marketplace. Jewelry तो touch किया अगर बेचा है इसने, and not just one. Everybody that I've met, even in the startup culture as well, and I'm talking about startup and tech most as well. Even then, if they are not talking about this part, then they will start talking about this case and the website. Now is they touch up. There are a lot of feedbacks. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Let's do that in the marketing. थोड़ा influencer marketing करवू જોઈએ, आ करवू જોઈએ. Lot of feedbacks, and we need to filter it. As Kulin asked, we need to do it on a daily basis. We did fail also at sometimes, but I think I'm fortunate enough to actually have got successfully filtered it in a way that had actually give us a particular roadmap very much clear ahead. How do we filter is एक particular वस्तु જોઈએ છે દર વખતે कि we take advice from somebody who has been there, done that for relevant part of it. So if I want to go to a restaurant, I would rather ask a foodie. Okay, have you been to that particular restaurant? He would say yes, I have been there. The taste is good. It's like, so I would take an advice from marketing from somebody who's a marketing a guy. Maybe just for that particular campaign or something, or that idea that I wanted to talk about. Maybe I would talk about more employee building, like the team building, hiring somebody to somebody who's actually made up a team of 100 plus, who have gone through that particular path. Maybe about funding, I would ask somebody who has raised funds successfully in the last 6 months, so they are aware about that particular part. So I had particular, and I'm fortunate that I don't have to go to somebody for that advice. I've got a lot of feedbacks coming in openly, and then I had that particular filter that okay, Kulin has done very fantastic in terms of HR and then employee healthcare. For anything about healthcare and employee welfare, I would rather listen to him very well, very well. So that kind of filters have helped us a lot staying focused on our particular thing. Even about the marketing campaigns, we were having two different kind of say ideas. Both of things are completely different, demanding different budget range, demanding different type of expertise, whom to hire, whom not to hire. And then if you have a very clarity of whom to particular think about, go. So that is particular, that filter is helping us stay focused and grow as well, right?
So I think when you talk about advice, right, there are this unsolicited advice. कोई आपको randomly message करके बोल रहा है यार your competitor is doing this, why don't you do this, or somebody got funded in this direction, why don't you do that? You kind of get carried away. Okay, I remember 2020 we had just raised our angel round. After 2 months, somebody from Matrix Partners reached out to us, and 5 rounds of meetings in 3 days. Okay, so if you are from this industry, you'll realize that this guy is really serious. And but this guy was trying to change my perspective, saying this market is okay, but don't make a marketplace, fintech बना दो इसमें, right? इनके लिए payments solve करेगा. And you won't believe, you know, even after 10 years of being in the industry, when I spoke to the partner at Matrix Partners, I changed my pitch. I actually said, हम तो fintech बना रहे हैं. उस समय, and next day this guy calls me up and said, यार क्या कर दिया? मैं बोला आपने ही बोला था fintech बना. Matrix Partners later funded another company that was trying to do exactly what we were doing, but and they kept talking to me as if they are going to fund me, but they never did that. And this founder took like upwards of $10 million. 3 महीने कंपनी चलाया, $9 million Matrix Partners को रिटर्न कर दिया. बोला हमसे नहीं होगा ये चीज. So if I taking Matrix Partners advice, and that this could be anybody, right? This could be any investor or any family member. I have to see कि has this person seen this journey or not. Unfortunately, India में there are very few people जिन्होंने ये पूरी journey देखी है, of starting from somewhere and then making a successful IPO, giving a profitable exit to their investors. So I'll give you a very recent example. So this was from my dad. Somebody offered to buy us out for 50 crore rupees, and my dad is like, perfect, कर लो. अपने घर में इतना तुम्हारा equity, अपने घर में इतना रुपया आ जाएगा. So my dad is speaking out of his own fear, and I have a 7-year-old son. A lot of times when I give him advice, I am speaking of my own fear. He's like, यहाँ से jump कर दूँ, मैं बोला मत करो, क्योंकि मैं अपने आप के बारे में सोच रहा हूँ कि मैं jump करूँगा तो गिर जाऊँगा, तो मेरा बेटा भी गिर जाएगा. So वो एक देखना पड़ता है कि आप जो advice जिससे ले रहे हो, is he speaking out of position of accomplishment or position of fear? I recently something happened. We were discussing about pricing plans, and we had like 3 different pricing plans. Speaking to Mr. Dinesh Agrawal, India Mart के founder है, and he was like, "Raman, एक plan बेचो. तुम्हारी sales team को कुछ नहीं समझ में आएगा. तुम अपने sales team को 3 plan नहीं समझा पाओगे. वो sales team वाला customer को क्या 3 plan समझाएगा?" And then we looked at India Mart, and India Mart has exactly 1 plan for body company. It's like somebody who's been like, I'm not sure how many of you know, India Mart was registered the day internet was launched in India. So 25-year-old company. It's worth about $2 billion in public market now, and few hundred crore rupees of profit every quarter. So I'm like, this person I can listen to, right? But यही advice अगर मेरे को कोई और दे रहा हो तो शायद मैं नहीं सुनता, क्योंकि मेरे को नहीं पता है उस advice के पीछे क्या story है, कितना gravity है. And Dinesh sir was like only one line, right? एक plan बेचो, उनके आगे पीछे उनको कुछ justify करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी. और I think that filtering you will have to do. कि is this person speaking with position of accomplishment or a position of of fear, which all of us could have, right?
I think the beauty of Indian society is that people really care for other people. Like for example, COVID में किसी को अगर हो गया तो 10 लोग के फोन आ जाएंगे, अरे काढ़ा पी लो, अरे ये कर लो, वो कर लो. So advice की कमी कुछ नहीं है. The problem is that you need to know कि where to focus, what to do. Like for example, बनिए के अगर कोई सोच लेता है कि मुझे MBBS करना है तो बोलेंगे यार क्या MBBS करना है, फार्मेसी की दुकान खोल लो. So you always have people who are willing to give you advice because they care. So it's not that they're trying to. Their intent is good, but ultimately as a founder, once you know your vision, once you know what exactly your end goal is, you have to listen to all, but accordingly decide your roadmap based on your gut call. Because I think a startup journey is a lot of gut call. You can't really always have a right approach to very scientific approach कि ऐसा होएगा या a financial approach. Things change, and that's what the journey is about. So ultimately it's up to you to have that focus, to zero down to different advice that you must have got and decide which route you want to take.
Awesome. So I think filter करने के लिए listen to experts, listen to people who जिन्होंने खुद से वो किया हुआ है, उनकी एडवाइस लीजिए. Do not try to I think do not try to build for other people, build it for yourself. I think there are a lot of people who want to build but don't have the guts, so they'll make you build their dreams. So don't fall in that trap. And of course, go by a gut call, like Pratik said. So now I'm going to ask each one of you one question, right? अगर आपके लिए ये है कि प्रोडक्ट एंड सर्विसेज, ज्वेलरी बिजनेस हैज ऑलवेज बीन मोर ऑफ अ सर्विसेज बिजनेस, लोग जाते हैं ऑर्डर लेते हैं, तो ये इंडस्ट्री में बिल्डिंग अ प्रोडक्ट और एक प्रोडक्ट माइंडसेट लेके आना, पीपल हु आर यूज्ड टू सर्विसेज, हाउ डिड यू गो अबाउट डूइंग दैट, राइट? हाउ वाज दैट चेंजिंग दैट माइंडसेट? कैसा रहा आपके लिए? हाउ डिफिकल्ट और हाउ इजी वाज इट?
सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल एक पैराडाइम शिफ्ट करने के लिए दैट इज द बिगेस्ट चैलेंज. જ્યારે કોઈને પણ આપણે વાત કરતા હોય ને કે આ એક નવી પ્રોડક્ટ છે, આ નવી ટેકનોલોજી છે, તો ક્વેશ્ચન અમને એવો આવતો હતો કે આમાં બીજું શું શું કરી આપશો તમે? એટલે પ્રોડક્ટ આ છે, તમે મારા માટે બીજા કોઈ 4 ફીચર્સ અંદર બનાવી આપશો? એક કામ કરો, તમે મારા સર્વર પર આપી દો, સર આ પ્રોડક્ટ છે અને ધીસ ઇઝ ઓન આર સર્વર્સ. તમે મને કેમ ના આપી શકો? હું એકવાર જ બાય કરી લઉં તો પછી તમે એક માણસ આપી દેજો, હું મેન્ટેનન્સ આપી દઈશ. લાઈક સર સો દેટ પર્ટિક્યુલર થિંગ હેડ ટુ ચેન્જ. એક એક કરીને અને આખું દરેક ક્લાયન્ટને અમે બેસીએ, સમજાવીએ, વાતચીત પણ થાય. સો ઇટ ઇઝ અ વેરી આઈ વુડ સે એઝ પોલ ગ્રેહામ ઓલવેઝ સેઝ દેટ એટ સ્ટાર્ટ, એટ ધ બિગિનિંગ, ડુ ધ થિંગ્સ દેટ ડોન્ટ સ્કેલ. એટલે અમે સેલ્સ માટે પર્ટિક્યુલરલી ક્લાયન્ટ્સને ઓનબોર્ડ કરવા માટે એવી પ્રોસેસ અત્યારે મૂકી છે દેટ વિચ ઇઝ એટ ધીસ પોઈન્ટ ઇફ વી સે ઇટ ઇઝ નોટ સ્કેલેબલ, બટ ધેન ઇન ફ્યુચર ઇટ will turn to become a scalable. But અત્યારે તો we hand hold a lot of things with our customers. અમને આખું કન્સેપ્ટ સમજાવીએ છીએ, એને પ્રોડક્ટ યુઝ કરવાના બેનિફિટ સમજાવીએ છીએ, અને સર્વિસીસની જગ્યાએ પ્રોડક્ટ લેશો તો એમના માટે કેમ બેનિફિશિયલ છે એ આખી we have made a presentation for that. We have added good examples, some success stories. આ બધું જ એડ કરીને એમની સાથે પ્રોપર માઇન્ડમાં એક સેટિસ્ફેક્ટરીલી આખું પિક્ચર બેસે, અને એ થયા પછી પણ જો ના બેસે તો એક પછી વ્યવસ્થિત પ્લાન આપીએ છીએ કે ઇફ યુ ડોન્ટ ફાઇન્ડ ઇટ ગુડ ફોર યોરસેલ્ફ then this is a money back guarantee, but at least you start with it. એક પોઈન્ટથી સ્ટાર્ટ કરી શકીએ, and that is a particular one step that we give them the confidence કે આનાથી સ્ટાર્ટ કરો. એક સ્ટેપ લીધા પછી we are fortunate કે towards 95% of our particular associations they have never taken a step back. I'm really glad and fortunate that કે એકવાર કોઈ એક સ્ટેપ અમારી સાથે લીધું છે, they have started the journey with us, and now that particular thing, then the word of mouth spreads, and then we get more referrals from that. But yes, it is difficult, and we have to do a lot of legwork and hard work for that.
Now I'll come back to you before I go to Pratik. So, by the way, guys, we have Pratik, who was also on Shark Tank, and he got a successful investment on Shark Tank. So, how was your experience on Shark Tank? Right? How did it happen? And tell us about all your experience at Shark Tank.
So, सबसे पहले तो, to be really honest, the day I was supposed to report for Shark Tank, I was like, यार नहीं जाना है. मतलब if anyone has seen any of the international formats of Shark Tank, it's typically more for B2C or D2C businesses, not primarily B2B or tech-enabled businesses. So like अपने काम का तो रहेगा नहीं. Plus I had spoken to a few guys who had pitched at Shark Tank, and the feedback was यार बहुत बेइज्जती हो रही है. So and anyone can check this ad called Manoj Bolecha, who's the founder of VCATs, My Unicorns, and I spoke to him. I'm like, Manoj यार Shark Tank में ऐसे selection हो गया, कल पे check. What do you think I should do? And he convinced me. Fortunately for us, I mean, they were very, very kind and very, very nice to us, so we got a good deal there. But post journey, on a personal note, I wouldn't say it was a great experience, and I'll tell you why. Suddenly overnight you get recognition, and that's something I'm not really comfortable with. I'm an operator. मुझे office जाके काम करना अच्छा लगता है. So when I go out, there are people who recognize you, they come to you. There are people who know they've seen you on Shark Tank, but then there are people who are just like staring at you and they don't know where they've seen you, So they'll come to you and they'll be like, I've seen you somewhere, आप कोई blogger हो क्या, कोई influencer हो क्या. And I always have a straight face, like यार पता नहीं, मतलब मैं तो कुछ नहीं हूँ, and I just like walk away. Like I'm not on Instagram, I'm not on Twitter, I'm not on Facebook, I'm only on LinkedIn. But as a business, I think it was a great journey for us because it put us on the map, it allowed us to build great credibility, great trust. most companies and most people in textile industry now have heard about Yarn Bazaar because because they've seen us there and because we've got a great deal. The narrative changed for us. So I think as a business it was a great deal for us.
How humble of him to say कि मुझे इतना celebrity quotient अच्छा नहीं लगता है. नमन, आप बैंगलोर में भी रहे हो, आप मुंबई में भी रहे हो, आपने टीम्स बनाई है in all these startup hubs, and I don't know how many of you know, but Naman is building his startup out of Surat. How कितना difficult रहा है इधर से टीम बिल्ड करना, टैलेंट को acquire करना, saying that I'm a Surat based startup. I know you mentioned that the company is registered in this, but you as a founder you're in Surat, right? So how easy कितना difficult है to tell people कि यार I'm a Surat based startup, आप मेरे लिए काम करोगे, and these are people who have a choice to be in Bombay, Delhi or Bangalore.
So I think ये सूरत वाला branding is very difficult to fight. So I never say I'm a Surat based startup, honestly. And this was a very conscious decision. There are multiple CAs in my family, so सूरत में अगर कंपनी रजिस्टर करता इजी हो जाता, फ्री में हो जाता. But हमने बैंगलोर में कंपनी रजिस्टर किया, and because at least pre-pandemic I hadn't heard of non-Bangalore, non-metro cities startups even getting funded, right? Cardeko है जयपुर based, but that guy has a legacy, right? And during pandemic or just before pandemic, we saw a couple of them in Indore and places. But this was a very conscious decision कि हमारा कंपनी बैंगलोर में रजिस्टर्ड है, and until 3 months ago कोई बैंक के compliance के लिए हमको सूरत ऑफिस वेबसाइट पे मेंशन करना पड़ा, but we never said we are a Surat based company. For good employees, I mean people I really wanted to chase and I wanted them to bring on my team, we always pitched it is a Surat based, सूरत में एक ऑफिस है just because of pandemic, but Bangalore based office, and this has helped us. There's a very popular business family in Surat, probably one of the richest people in Surat, who outright said, I will not fund a Surat based startup. He's born, brought up in Surat, Surat's biggest business family. All of you know the name. He said, I will not fund a Surat based startup क्योंकि मेरे को ट्रस्ट ही नहीं होता है, क्या कच्चा पक्का करते हैं दिन भर, मेरे को नहीं पता है. That problem was very real. Okay. Culturally, आज सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम जो सूरत में है कि सूरत में the employees are very loyal. जो टीममेट्स हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा लॉयल हैं. अगर आप किसी को कहीं से पोच करने की ट्राई करोगे, अपने जाके बॉस को बोल देगा कि यार वहाँ से मेरे को कॉल आ रहा है, मैं नहीं. So that way it is a problem. We have I worked out of a co-working space from day one. So I came to Surat in 2017 June. June end से co-working space में काम कर रहा हूँ. And somehow वो co-working space में जो crowd आती है वो पूरे सूरत में नहीं है, right? The kind of cafes they talk about, my family wouldn't have heard of. जो lunch में हम लोग जो lunch share करते हैं वो lunch बहुत different होता है from what my dad takes to his office. So that has helped me to at least get connected to people who've come out of come from outside Surat to Surat and they've settled. Because of pandemic this helped. So हमारी funding हुई थी January 2020 में, and March में pandemic आ गया था. So I had a lot of people who came from outside Surat and they settled here, and people got comfortable that it is okay to be in Surat and work for a company, etc. I have worked very hard on my personal branding. बहुत followers नहीं है, 6000 followers हैं Twitter पे, but somehow it helps. लोगों को लगता है कि सूरत में बैठ करके किसी पास Twitter पे followers हैं, तो वो personal branding help करता है. LinkedIn पे active नहीं हूँ, Instagram पे अभी active होना start हुआ है. That personal branding showing up at events like this, at least लोगों को पता चलता है कि कुछ है reference नाम का. Second, be very very honest and truthful to people. I remember I hired this intern, and this guy was like, I have 3 months before I go to Canada. सूरत में दो ही प्रॉब्लम होता है ना, या तो पापा बिजनेस करा देंगे या मेरा कनाडा का वीजा लगेगा. I make a very very conscious decision not to hire people, and I know I'm saying this publicly, but we make a conscious decision of not hiring people who come from financially upper middle class. Okay. I recently hired somebody, his father has a textile business, Jain family से है. I'm like, boss, पापा अलाउ भी कैसे करेंगे यहाँ पे? तुम यहाँ काम कर रहे हो, पापा जितना by in the next 5 years you'll be like 28, your dad will look like marriage proposals आएंगे, और मेरे को 5 साल में तुमको वहाँ पहुँचाना है जहाँ तुम्हारे पापा आ जाए, क्योंकि this is how सूरत works, right? in some cases we've actually denied employment to people because they couldn't answer this question of ours. We had a very good intern. हर हफ्ते मेरी उससे अभी बात होती है, बोलता है सर आ जाऊँ, मैं बोला पापा से पूछ लो. One particular case happened where this guy actually got a job in Canada after working for us for 1 year. He got a job in Canada and is like मैं quit कर रहा हूँ, अगले महीने कनाडा का ऐसा प्री कोरोना टाइम में मैंने अप्लाई किया था, अभी मिल रहा है. 4 months later something happened with his visa etc. Did not get visa. He came back to us and this time I was like, are you coming here for good? And he's like, now I'm here for lifetime. So वो जो मेरे लिए एक litmus test था कि for the 1 year that he served in the company, did I actually make an environment where he feels that he's accomplishing something, right? और मेरे लिए it's not easy for me to obviously create a team in Surat. कोई connections नहीं है, I'm also I've not done my schooling here. I was born in Bihar, raised in Nepal, and did schooling from outside. So very difficult situation here. I think just be honest to whatever teammates you have. और उनको एक अपॉर्चुनिटी दो कि वो कुछ अकम्प्लिश कर सके. आज सूरत में बहुत कम कंपनियां हैं जो वराछा में देर आर एटलीस्ट 1000 IT कंपनीज दैट मेक मोर देन 5 crore rupees ऑफ प्रॉफिट एवरी ईयर. मोस्ट बैंगलोर पीपल कैन नॉट से दिस. बैंगलोर में फाउंडर्स पैसा नहीं बनाते, सिर्फ फंडिंग बनाते हैं. तो यहाँ पे लोग एक्चुअल पैसा बनाते हैं बट वो लोग अपने एम्प्लॉयज के साथ शेयर नहीं करते. मतलब आई माइट बी स्पार्किंग wrong fire here, but मेरे टीम में एक ऐसा बंदा है जिसकी सैलरी पिछले 3 साल में 10x हुई है. 10x. He was working for an IT company in सूरत और उसकी सैलरी 2019 से अभी में 10 गुना हुई है. तो ये इसलिए क्योंकि आई नो कि अगर ये बंदा मेरे को बैंगलोर में हायर करना होता तो व्हाट वुड आई नीड टू गिव दिस गाय, राइट? मैं वही सैलरी सूरत में दे रहा हूँ एंड आई एम बीइंग वेरी ऑनेस्ट विद हिम. अगर ये आप कर रहे हो मतलब इट्स I will make money, right? If this whole thing happens, जिस डायरेक्शन में लेना चाह रहा हूँ, I will make money. This guy should also make money. सूरत में लोगों को ESOPs नहीं समझ में आते, right? तो वो ESOP पहले समझाना, making sure कि उसकी expectation बहुत ऊंचे नहीं चले गए. जब मैं 10 लाख का ESOP दे रहा हूँ मतलब मैं 10 लाख कैश नहीं दे रहा हूँ उसको. And then he being able to sell that story to his father, saying कि यार अभी ऐसा काम कर रहा है, कंपनी अननोन है थोड़ा, but ESOP है मेरे पास. And then actually sharing that, वो documentation बहुत clear रखना. So एक इंटर्न आया था मेरे पास, उसने क्वेश्चन मेरे से पूछा, he's demanding 15,000 rupees. Okay, he was like कि, and I was working out of a co-working space, company उस समय register हो गई थी, but there was no employee, and he was like, can you really pay? I mean, he was like कि बड़ा ऑफिस कुछ नहीं है ना. I'm like यार बॉस, पे का क्या मतलब है? दे दूँगा, मतलब 15,000 रुपये दे दूँगा. And he was like, but can you pay on the first of the month? And like obviously salaries first of the month को जाती है. Then and he did not turn up the next day. This guy came through a referral and he was like यार पिछले कंपनी में 2 महीने काम किया था, सैलरी नहीं. सूरत के बेंचमार्क्स बहुत नीचे हैं. तो सूरत में हायरिंग इफ यू आर रिसेंटली फंडेड और थोड़ा सा पैसा होने का एडवांटेज है, एक्सटर्नली फंडेड होने का एडवांटेज है, बट बेंचमार्क्स नीचे हैं अभी सूरत के. वो आप मैच कर दोगे तो हायरिंग पॉसिबल. इट इज पॉसिबल टू गेट पीपल फ्रॉम आउटसाइड सूरत. मैं जिस कोवर्किंग स्पेस में काम करता हूँ, देयर इज लाइक एक्सेंचर से एक कंसल्टेंट है, वो मेरे कोवर्किंग स्पेस में काम करता है. देयर इज अ गाय हु रन्स हायरिंग फॉर कनाडा बेस्ड स्टार्टअप्स. ही वर्क्स आउट ऑफ दिस स्पेस एंड एवरीबडी फेल्ट दिस कि यार हम लोग जब बाहर से आते हैं ना तो लग रहा है कि यार सूरत में आप शेयर नहीं कर रहे हो रिकॉर्ड, राइट? एंड दिस इज हैपेंस एवरीवेयर, राइट? आप अगर टेक्सटाइल बिजनेस में सूरत में चला रहे हो ना तो वो एक है कि यार ये सेठ है और ये बाकी स्टाफ है. I remember first day when I came to Surat, I'm like, यार ये पापा आपका की स्टाफ है, why don't you give him equity? पापा like पूछा बात. लड़का पागल हो गया. 1 year later that guy quit. He started his own business. Same जो पापा करते हैं exactly वही business उसने start किया. His sales in the first year was 80% of what my dad's sales was. Right? So लोग हैं, आप उनके साथ reward share करोगे, they will stick around. बट आपको वो रिवॉर्ड का पाई इतना बड़ा बनाना पड़ेगा कि सबके लिए सेंस आए. Once you start doing that, I think things will fall into.
I think that's a very candid answer. I think the burden is on all the founders and Surat to change this atmosphere. I think जो हम आज तक करते आए हैं, I think आपको बदलना होगा to get the best talent. And I don't see a reason why someone from Canada will come and work out here instead of people from here going to Canada. So So I think Surat is a vibrant place for sure. I think we just need to change our outlook. So Naman, thanks for that. I think we're going to run out of time, but before that, let's quickly talk about funding. Mane 0 to 1 mein funding plays a very important role. We ourselves have raised some amount of capital, and that has helped us to kind of grow. So Agam, quickly in a minute, if you can tell us about how did you raise your round of funding? I think you've taken a pre-seed round of funding. आपने कैसे, how did you decide what kind of investors you wanted?
Okay, so as everybody,
While you talk about funding, at the stage of funding, how much was your bootstrapping? That much also if you can share. That
Sure.
will help.
That's very important.
In perspective.
Sure. So before we actually started looking out for funding, we have already invested more than 25 lakhs ourselves from my own savings, and we have already made that platform working, up and running, and it was starting. So it was taking some early validation was done. It was not an early PMF, but validation was already started, and then we had a full-fledged product working in that case. About funding, I would say we were looking at a very, very specific investors in our case because the industry is very niche. The market is very niche and our technology is also such that and I knew from the very beginning that the traction जो journey हमारा होने वाला है, जिस तरीके से growth होने वाला है वो different होगा बाकी सारी tech companies के comparison में. तो जो भी investor इस चीज को समझते हैं, जो इस चीज में मुझे इस journey में जहाँ पे मुझे नहीं पता है मुझे guide कर सकते हैं, वो investors को मैं ढूंढ रहा था. अब वो मिलेंगे कैसे? By walking and talking. I had actually talked to around more than 100 investors, and to be honest, jokingly within our startup friends and founders friend, we used to say that in Ahmedabad, Gujarat is a dry state for funding as well. So we used to say that. So whenever you go and talk to somebody, he will listen to you very well and they'll say, इसके लिए 55% equity देंगे. I said, come on, 55% equity, not even 50%. एंड वो इन्वेस्टमेंट और एंजल इन्वेस्टिंग का माइंडसेट है वो भी थोड़ा थोड़ा बनने के लिए टाइम लग जाता था. आई इवन ऑल्सो डिड नॉट नो और मे बी डिड नॉट हैव एन एक्सेस टू द एक्चुअल एंजल इन्वेस्टर्स हु कैन रियली हेल्प यू, बट दैट इज अ लेडर दैट यू हैव टू रीच. सो यू हैव टू स्टार्ट विद द फर्स्ट स्टेप. यू टॉक टू पीपल, you have to keep your focus very much intact, not falling into the actual one कि चलो मैं इतना इन्वेस्ट कर देता हूँ, आप मुझे 40% दे दो, हम आपको नेक्स्ट लेवल पे लेकर के जाएंगे. ऐसी भी काफी सारी ऑफर्स भी आती थी एंड वी वर लाइक नहीं, हमें पता है कि हम किस डायरेक्शन में लेकर के जाना चाहते हैं इसको. वी आर लुकिंग एट दैट पर्टिकुलर प्रोडक्ट एज वेल. सो वो इन्वेस्टर्स को फाइंड करने के लिए आई हैड पिच्ड मोर देन 100 इन्वेस्टर्स बिफोर आई कुड सिक्योर आवर फर्स्ट इन्वेस्टमेंट फ्रॉम एन एंजल. इंस्टीट्यूशनल इन्वेस्टमेंट तो फिर बाद में आएगा, बट एक एंजल इन्वेस्टर के लिए यू हैव टू मीट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल एंड देन गिव दैट a thought clarity. And if you are fortunate enough, a second time founder, you have that access as well now. Even a history for that. So that makes your life very easier for a second time entrepreneur.
Awesome. So, Pratik, obviously you come from a family which has always owned a business, and I don't think in your in your earlier business you have ever taken funding or diluted yourself.
बैंक का लोन लेते थे ना?
हाँ, बैंक का लोन लेते थे, पर उसमें इक्विटी नहीं देना पड़ता था. तो जब इक्विटी देना पड़ता है करके, आई एम श्योर अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल आउट हियर, आप लोगों को भी लगता होगा कि अरे मैं अपना इक्विटी क्यों दूं, राइट? अगर बैंक कोडी मिल रहा है, वर्किंग कैपिटल लाइन मिल रहा है, तो अपना इक्विटी क्यों देना चाहिए, राइट? हाउ डू यू थिंक अबाउट इट नाउ? अब कैसे सोच है आपकी कि स्टार्टअप में तो इक्विटी चला जाता है, राइट? अच्छे स्टार्टअप्स में फाउंडर्स होल्ड 2%, 3% at the time when they are at $1 billion, right? I have a personal view on this, but before that, I'll want to hear your view on this.
I think if you're looking for non-linear growth, I mean, if you want to scale up very quickly, you have to raise growth capital, and there is no better way to raise growth capital than equity funding. So I don't see there shouldn't be any reason why a founder should not be comfortable giving away equity. If that is the case, then probably you're not in the right ecosystem.
My take is this, do you want to be a founder of a 10 crore company and own 100%? Or do you want to be a founder of, say, 1,000 crores and own 10% is the question out here, right? एंड या आई थिंक अगर आपको ग्रोथ कैपिटल चाहिए और आपको लगता है कि आप आज फंडिंग रेज करके यू कैन हिट न्यू हाइट्स, यू कैन स्केल वेल, right? And I'm sure that our panel in the next, are more qualified than me because they're all, investors. But I think yes, it is okay to dilute equity. Obviously, look out for yourselves. VCs में काफी और angels में भी काफी लोग हैं who will take away a large share of the pie, but there's always a balance. So if you are looking to raise money, don't think about raising money. Look at raising money at the right terms from the right people, and don't think about it from raising it from out of desperation, right? And हाँ अगर कोई equity लेके जा रहा है but value add दे रहा है करके, it is worth it because वो आपके partners बन रहे हैं, वो आपका equity नहीं छीन रहे हैं, right? They are becoming your partners. और आपका अगर business partner है, you should give a share of the pie to them. So think in a more in a more broad fashion, and don't limit your thinking that मैं अपना equity किसी को क्यों दूँ, क्योंकि बैंक भी तो दे रहा है ना 10% या 12% या 15% पे. Naman, according to you, tell us 2 or 3 reasons why you should not raise funding. And the reason I'm asking this question to you is because आपने काफी contrary views यहाँ पे दिए हैं करके, तो I am sure that you will have a good sense for this also, because you've seen startups who have raised funding, and you yourself have been taking funding as and when you wanted to take, not because out of pressure or something. So what are those 2 or 3 reasons why you should not raise funding?
I think the biggest reason of not taking funding is if the idea is not scalable. अगर आपको you look at the business model of a VC, and this VC has to return back money to his LP in about 7 to 10 years. So
LP is basically limited partners. Limited partners are usually people who are giving VCs money. तो उनको भी अपना returns चाहिए.
The VC is not the owner of the money. The VC is manager of the money. Right? Angel investors are generally owner of the money. So LP could be like a large bank or a sovereign fund or some pension fund, etc. So generally, if you look at their business model, you have to return that money in 7 to 10 years. So and during that 7 to 10 years, you have to run very very fast. आपको from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100, VC would expect कि आप IPO कर लोगे. That is the expectation that they have from day one. I remember when I was pitching this idea to an investor who actually invested later. I'm like, sir, कुछ नहीं होगा, $100 million का तो कंपनी बन जाएगा. And he hung up on me. It's like $100 million में मेरा कुछ नहीं होगा, right? क्योंकि उनका business model इससे justify नहीं होता है. So अगर आपका business model वो VC वाले business model को justify नहीं करता है, you should not raise. I have a friend in Ahmedabad. He makes about 6 crore rupees profit from a software company. He's not a technical graduate. Right? He does not take funding ever. I mean, he has VCs coming to him, but he's not willing to take funding. It's like ये पाई इतना बड़ा नहीं हो सकता है कि मैं अभी इसमें और पैसा लेकर के इसको और बड़ा करूँ, उसमें शेयर किसी को और दे दूँ. Right? Or non-linear growth may not be possible. Zoho is a very similar example. I'm not sure. We keep talking about SaaS funding. SaaS मेरे को non-VC business लगता है. Honestly, SaaS मेरे को non-VC business लगता है. We don't have examples of SaaS companies making in India. We don't have examples of SaaS companies making money, profits from SaaS. Okay, Freshworks. Sorry, there is a company called Zenoti. 70% of their revenue comes from transactions. Payment gateway से 70% revenue आता है. SaaS से नहीं आता है. SaaS बड़ा funny सा business है ना. जब तक आप बड़े होगे तब तक कोई आपका एक छोटा सा पाई ले जाएगा. I am invoicing platform. I am invoicing platform only for freelancer. I am bookkeeping platform. I am bookkeeping platform only for somebody or specialized version of that. Anyways, keeping that aside, I think if you think it cannot be very very big, don't take funding. B, if you're not finding the right person, as in you will have to talk to your investor every week. उसने आपको पैसा दिया है, वो आपको कॉल करेगा, आपको इज्जत से बात करनी पड़ेगी. If you think you cannot take that, okay, don't take funding. And if you think you're not ready to run very fast, so my friend in Ahmedabad is doing great. It's like मेरे को आराम से जिंदगी जीना है, right? So if you don't want to run very fast, होता है ना, आप क्रिकेट खेल रहे हो, गली क्रिकेट खेल रहे हो क्योंकि आप enjoy कर रहे हो गली क्रिकेट. अभी आपको बोलो कि यार आपको तो इंडियन क्रिकेट टीम का कैप्टन बनना है, तो सुबह 6 बजे उठ करके विराट कोहली की तरह आप जिम जाओगे, फिर आप डाइट में कट डाउन करोगे, पार्टीज कट डाउन करोगे, पूरा लाइफस्टाइल चेंज है. If you're not ready for that, don't take VC funding, right? So So if you don't have the right market, don't take VC funding. If you don't think the VC is a good teammate to have, don't take VC funding. If you're not ready to evolve yourself, तो fast track में अगर आपको नहीं जाना है तो it doesn't make sense.
And I think another one is that your story, N Tracker, Times of India, ET Rise, वो सब पढ़ के तो डेफिनेटली डोंट गो आउट थिंक यार मैं भी फंडिंग रेस करूंगा करके, है ना. माने अरे उसने कंपटीशन में रेस किया तो मुझे भी रेस करना है. आई थिंक वी वर डिस्कसिंग दिस ऑन द वे बैक टू ऑन द वे टू सूरत के कंपटीशन को देख के भी लोग फंडिंग रेस करते हैं. मत कीजिएगा, दैट्स डेट्रीमेंटल. एंड लाइक नमन सेड, यस, रेज इट फॉर द राइट रेज इट फॉर द राइट पीपल. आई थिंक आई विल शेयर वन एनेक्डोट. जब हम लोग हमारा सीरीज ए रेस कर रहे थे तो पीपल ने बोला अरे एम्प्लॉय हेल्थ बेनिफिट्स, हेल्थ इंश्योरेंस, आप ई कॉमर्स की तरह 100x क्यों नहीं ग्रो कर लेते हो. लाइक अरे ऐसे नहीं होता है ये धंधा, राइट. लाइक ई कॉमर्स का धंधा नहीं है ये. there's a substantial financial product that is there which is health insurance. There is health care in it. वो ई कॉमर्स की तरह नहीं ग्रो करता है. We have refused investors when we were raising money, and we are also very proud to say that we have very good partners who have funded us because they see they are completely aligned with our vision, right. And we are very lucky that we found these partners in very early days. So yeah.
वो सामने बैठे उसे नहीं बोल रहा ना.
नहीं सामने तो हाँ बैठे हैं, but I'm like, no one, I will call a spade a spade. But there are people who will come back to you and say अरे मॉडल चेंज कर दो, 100x ग्रोथ दिखा दो. But yeah, and I think as founders understand this one thing, that VCs are there to help you from their experience. They are not here to run your business. So don't think कि VCs आके बस आप में पैसा डालेंगे और आपका बिजनेस बड़ा हो जाएगा. बड़ा आपको करना है, उनको नहीं करना है. उनको रिटर्न से मतलब है.
And I add one more point to that. Where you should not raise, if you have enough funds to take it to the next level. मतलब next कुछ भी हो सकता है, 3 महीने 6 महीने तक भी कुछ भी next level हो सकता है. If you have got 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs, जितना भी funds है, take it to the next level and then raise. There could be a time limit for it. Maybe 3 months is 90 days is the usual runway period that you should have to start looking out for funds. But if you have some good funds, don't raise. That's a no for that particular time. Raise after that level is achieved.
True, very true. So now, in interest of time, I'm going to cut down 1 or 2 questions and ask you one last question. Let's talk about the future, right? आप सब लोग, I know I saw your tweet in the morning that you have people from 7 countries, using your platform. So, but how do you take your brand global, right? आप अहमदाबाद से build कर रहे हो, you're building from Surat, while you're not calling it from Surat, but you're still building from Surat. आप बॉम्बे से build कर रहे हो, but you're building it in a very niche segment. How do you think you'll take your brand global, right? Do you think geography, funding, are these limitation factors, or are you saying that no, these are not limitation factors? What do you think is that one thing that will take you as a become a national brand or a global brand?
I think these are not the limitations. So geography, fundings are definitely not the limitations, and it is not even restricting us. What is restricting us is ourselves. We are actually keeping it out that we want to keep our foot very strong. We want to have a very strong roots first, and then we will globalize. But we are very clear in one part कि अगर हम इसको global level पे लेके ले जाएंगे तो भी we will make it very tech enabled product, जो anyways अभी टेक्नोलॉजी के साथ ही है, बट हमारा सेल्स प्रोसेस भी टेक से चलेगा, हमारा ऑनबोर्डिंग भी टेक से चलेगा, हमारा इनवॉइसिंग भी टेक से चलेगा. जहां पे भी अभी मैनुअल और ह्यूमन इंटरवेंशन एक अनऑर्गेनाइज्ड सेक्टर है हमारे वर्किंग स्टाइल में भी, उसको भी हम इवॉल्व करेंगे, एंड देन ऑटोमेटिकली इट विल बिकम अ ग्लोबल ब्रांड. Automatically we will also stick to more of our branding guidelines and start working in that particular direction. Not every initiative will be directly coming from the founders' dreams and fancies. It will be a very much channelized and a thought through process. Then it will automatically become a global brand. वो बनाना नहीं पड़ेगा, वो अपने आप बन जाएगा. That's what I think.
I don't know, I mean, we have users from 200 countries, paying users from about 70 countries. दो चीज़ें, एक तो product has to resonate with that audience, आपकी marketing communication has to resonate. वो आपको user खुद सिखा के जाएगा. अभी last month we had somebody from Egypt and he said Egypt में ये major कोई law change हो रहा है and only your software has this particular capability, तो आप थोड़ा सा change कर लोगे तो आपका वो भी हो जाएगा. So this user paid us for the software. He helped us change the software, and then he is marketing our software in Egypt. Okay. And this is not only in our case. I've seen it with couple of businesses where I've invested also. अगर आप यूजर की सुनोगे तो यूजर आपको वहां तक लेके जाएगा. दूसरा, आई थिंक अगर हम लोग सेम चीज सिलिकॉन वैली में कर रहे होते, सैन फ्रांसिस्को में ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आता. सो कहीं ना कहीं ये लिमिटेशन हमारे दिमाग में है कि क्या हम ग्लोबल ब्रांड बन सकते हैं कि नहीं. सो फॉर रेफरेंस, हम लोग कभी नेशनल ब्रांड बन के सक्सेसफुल नहीं हो सकते. आई मीन देयर कैन नॉट बी अ लिंक्डइन फॉर इंडिया, राइट? सो आई कैन नॉट मेक अ नेटवर्किंग प्रोडक्ट ओनली फॉर इंडिया. मेरे घर में उस दिन पैसा आएगा जब हम एक्चुअली ग्लोबल ब्रांड बन जाएंगे. सो मेरे लिए वो दैट इज द ओनली एम. बट इफ यू कीप लिसनिंग टू योर यूजर्स, और एक अच्छी टीम अगर आप बना रहे हो जो who's doing this. So 10 minutes ago I got a mail from one of the team members किया वो साउथ अफ्रीका वाले यूजर का इतना लंबा लिस्ट आया है फीचर रिक्वेस्ट का, करना है नहीं करना है. एंड लाइक तुम डिसाइड करो साउथ अफ्रीका में तुमको यूजर ग्रोथ करना है कि नहीं करना है. सो इट्स काइंड ऑफ मैटर ऑफ प्रायोरिटी. और फंडिंग मिल जाता है. आई थिंक मोस्ट VCs आर विलिंग टू फंड कि यार आपके पास एक ग्लोबल प्रोडक्ट, ग्लोबल विजन है. तो आई थिंक दोज आर इजियर चैलेंजेस. इट्स मोर इन आवर हेड कि we don't have enough examples around us, but now thankfully we have. If you look at the whole Chennai ecosystem and look at the Bangalore ecosystem, there are players who are going international. So I think a वो limiting factor नहीं रहेगा.
So recently we came across a Sindhi from Bombay who's based out of Indonesia, runs a large textile business. मतलब साल का $50 million plus का उनका turnover है, 20 million plus yarn purchase annual. Never buys a single kilo of yarn from India because of lack of trust on quality and timely delivery. That's when we realized that international opportunity is much bigger because the problem statement in cross-border transactions is it's very high. So then we started speaking to buyers based out of Vietnam, Bangladesh, including China. Currently we're in discussion with one of the largest fashion brands of the world where they're sourcing huge quantum of yarn globally, and the entire operation based on out of emails. So I think very soon, because anyway we are focusing on consolidating the small fragmented supplier base, शायद इंडिया का धागा हम हर जगह तो लेकर जाएंगे.
So I think on a parting note, right? I had a few more questions, but I think we have the next panel also. So on a parting note, product versus service. There is no reason why you can't do any one of them, right? सर्विस कर रहे तो यार देयर इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम. बट यस, प्रोडक्ट हेल्प्स यू टू स्केल. आपका स्केलिंग बेटर हो जाता है प्रोडक्ट से, राइट? विद द प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड अप्रोच, प्रोडक्ट बेस्ड ग्रोथ से आपका कॉस्ट ऑफ एक्विजिशन कम हो जाता है करके. स्पेशली ऑन श्योरिटी जहाँ पे एम्प्लॉय हेल्थ बेनिफिट्स, आई एम श्योर आप सब लोग एक इंश्योरेंस एजेंट को जानते हो जो फैमिली से हमेशा एसोसिएटेड है या बिजनेस से एसोसिएटेड है. इट हैज ऑलवेज बीन अ सर्विस इंडस्ट्री, बट वी हैव क्रिएटेड अ प्रोडक्ट अराउंड इट, right? And that has really helped us to scale. But obviously the decision is that of the founder. या आपका decision है कि आपको कैसे build करना है अपना business, right? So I think that is up to you. I think with the right partners who can give you fund. Yes, sir.
So, Pulinji, I know that we are running out of time and we have much better things in store. Since the title of your panel is 0 to 1, I did a little bit of googling. Namanji is a tech guy, you are an instrumentation guy but not a coder, and you are also not a coder. So both of you do not have tech background and non-tech background, and you came out with a product which is basically tech based. Here in Surat, in Chamber of Commerce, we keep on getting inquiries from potential startups. Ideas है, ये idea है, लेकिन उसको कैसे हम tech में convert करें. So Naman is a tech guy, so he might have led the team himself. But how did you manage, both of you manage the tech problem to begin with?
So this is very interesting question. ये question I think अहमदाबाद में भी काफी सारे लोगों ने ये फेस किया कि being a non-tech founder आप tech कैसे बनाते हैं. और मैं जोकिंगली हर जगह पे पहले भी कहता था 2 साल तक मैं हर जगह पे कह रहा था कि मैंने केटरिंग का बिजनेस शुरू किया, मेरे पास कोई रसोईया महाराज नहीं है. આપણે કેટરિંગ નો બિઝનેસ શરૂ કરી અને જો રસોઈયા તમારા પોતાના નથી તો ક્યાંથી થશે. સો what we did was કે અમે પર્ટિક્યુલરલી ફેમિલીમાં સ્ટાર્ટિંગ થી હાઉ હસલિંગ એકચ્યુઅલી સ્ટાર્ટેડ. તો પહેલી વાર જ્યારે વેબસાઇટ બનાવવાની હતી, મતલબ ફોર ધ વેરી ફર્સ્ટ ટાઈમ I actually consulted one of a family member. Arey, you are a techie, but एक website बना दी हमने please करी और थोड़ी gift आपी we've made one particular website. પછી એમની જોડે બેસીને થોડું શીખ્યા. Then we have particularly had another friend જેનાથી થોડું વધારે સારું કરવાનું હતું તો એને થોડીક વધારે સારી રીતે professionally એક website બનાવી. Maybe that particular just a validation is needed. The business is in your mind, but you need a technology to validate that. Now it is not needed a full-fledged product. Then that is validated. Then we wanted to invest some more funds, and then we have hired some interns. Interns થી થોડું કામ થયું પછી full time engineers ને hire કર્યા. By that time it was 2 years, and by that time I had to learn the basics of coding so that I could talk to them in that particular language. I had to evolve that way. If I could not do that, મને દર વખતે કોક ને કોક ફ્રીલાન્સર દરેક નાની વસ્તુનું મોટું બિલ આપી દે કે તમે કોઈ બી ચેન્જ કરવું છે ને લાયનો 15000 કંઈ ચેન્જ કરવું છે કોઈ ફ્રીલાન્સર મને મોટું બિલ આપી જાય. But then actually I hired and I decided that I'm not going to outsource it entirely because I knew that it is not going to work. દર નાની વસ્તુને દર વીકે ચેન્જ કરવાનું આવશે. So then we did it in-house, and in 2 years' time I also evolved, the team also evolved. Now we have a full-fledged battery of developers working with us in-house, and I take care of the product development. So I lead that product development now after like 5 years of journey, and I can now talk on every detail of the development as well. So in 5 years' time I also got into that particular desk. But then without we getting much into it, it's like skin in the game, you know. So if you have that, you can really excel at that particular task.
I think, see, if you look at any sport also, no one's born as a great cricketer or a great football player. So while you're working on the job, slowly you start understanding, slowly you start learning, and it becomes like, ठीक है आपको समझ सकते हो, manage कर सकते हो. And ultimately, running a big business is always a talent game. You have to build a talented pool of team members. So even if you do not have the tech expertise, you can always get someone on your team who's a talented coder or a CTO material.
Awesome. So, Puneet, I think we ran out of time, long time back. So, we'll hand over the stage to the next panel. Yeah. By the way, thanks, guys. So, Adam is coming from Ahmedabad. Prateek is coming from Bombay. They specially made it out here. Team Onshot is coming from Bangalore just to kind of meet up with you guys. We look forward to interacting with you and learning from you. Thank you.
A great round of applause, yes, for the panel. I really thank you, Agam, Prateek, Naman, and the moderator Kulin for a great, journey from 0 to 1. Thank you, guys. So, guys, इसके भी questions हो, आप थोड़ा note कर लेना. After that, ये लोग को किसी को छोड़ेंगे नहीं हम, सबको पूछ लेंगे, सारा knowledge हम download कर लेंगे. सूरती expert है download कर लेंगे. So, thank you. The first panel, journey from 0 to 1, has been completed now somehow. So कहीं तो आगे पहुंचे 0 से, थोड़ा knowledge में तो पहुंचे at least. Let's we implement. और जो नमन ने share किया, जो आगम ने share किया, what about Surat? The mindset of the Surat people and all. And I really think कि बहुत सारे लोग हैं जैसे हमारी community में कि जो बहुत अच्छी journey कर रहे हैं. And yes, implementing this framework, and we will get success in near future. So thank you. So now I welcome to second panel, that is the metrics behind startup, and we have very two good investors from investor community. So I welcome Subodh Zalori on a stage from Whiteboard Capital. Whiteboard Capital is an early stage investment fund. Yes, please. Just change the plates, please. Plates. Okay, sure. Okay. So thank you, Subodh. Yes, second speaker is Bhuvan Bijawat from Nexus Venture Partner. Small about Nexus Venture is the first India-US fund and been invested in tech products. So yes, welcome. And now moderator of our second panel, Mr. Manoj Chadwani from Bizomia, our Surat-based firebrand moderator. Welcome. And yes. So thank you, guys. Yes, stage is yours, 45 minutes, and I want public, all the audience will really get inside metrics behind the startups, and yes, definitely.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for being here on the Friday evening. मतलब you could have chosen this time to spend time with your family and friends, but it looks like आप लोग interested हो पैसा कैसे बनेगा, funds कैसे आने वाला है. So thank you so much, Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, SaasBoomi, to give me the opportunity to be here and moderate this event. So my name is Manoj Chadwani. I'm founder of Whiteboard. A little bit about myself. 15 years of corporate experience. 9 years I've spent in Singapore working for fintech Barclays. Last 1.5 years, I'm working on my own product. My product journey later on, you can connect me. I'll tell you what we do. So we are building a B2B social commerce platform. Now, actually, आज मुझे ना खुशी बहुत है. मैं बताता हूँ क्यों. पिछले 15 महीने से मैं स्टार्टअप जर्नी में जब भी मैं इन्वेस्टर से बात करूँ ये लोग मुझसे क्वेश्चन पूछते हैं. तो but before actually I still remember even when I was preparing for this, so Rajnish from Untitled, he was chasing me since last almost 48 hours that questions भेज. मैंने बोला भाई तेरे को सारे नहीं भेजूंगा, थोड़े तो सरप्राइज रखूंगा. So yes, on that, and now before I deep dive into the questions, quick one. So I got Subodh with me, who's from Whiteboard Capital, Bhuvan from Nexus. Might be guys, if you can give a quick introduction about yourself, maybe.
Hello. Yes. Great. Thank you so much, Manoj, and thank you. I think Rajesh ji has already given an introduction of myself, but I'll keep it short. I'm kind of I'll give more time for questions than my introduction. I am part of Whiteboard Capital. Whiteboard Capital is an idea stage fund based out of Bombay. We are sector agnostic in nature, but we are state specific. We want to invest in companies and founders who have an idea, have a germ of an idea, but are kind of looking for a partner who could kind of be a part of that journey from, I wouldn't say 0 to 1, but at least in the first 12 to 18 months of kind of building out that business. They are extremely painful, extremely involved in that, in the journey of building the startup in the first 12 to 14 months. And yeah, I joined the team a year back. We've made more than, as Whiteboard Capital, we've made more than 45 investments. And yeah, we look forward to kind of interacting with the companies here, with the founders here, with the panel that has already kind of had a wonderful discussion. So that's enough. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm part of the investment team at Nexus, and maybe I can tell you a little bit about me and Nexus also. So I graduated from IT Kanpur, worked with McKinsey for a couple of years, and as you probably know, I think I worked with a bunch of industries. Luckily, I worked with a battery manufacturer based out of Calcutta. I mean, this was work from home, COVID times. So it was a very interesting project, at least that I was working on. So they had their after-sales services, which was pretty much driven by their massive dealer distribution network, right? And somehow the company had a plan कि चलो इसमें कुछ tech का angle लाते हैं. We'll make like a D2C offering जहाँ पे app बनाएंगे, and let's say when a car is breaking down on the road, somebody can just go on the app and get a technician on the spot, and वहीं पे problem solve हो जाएगा. So instead of पुराना वाला arrangement जहाँ पे the TAT was, or the turnaround time from getting your battery back was somewhere around 14 days, the plan was to actually change it to probably a couple of hours. So I was fortunate enough to be a part of this project, and this was right from the start. So I mean, we onboarded technicians from right across. I think Surat was also one of the cities, and created incentive plans for them, digital marketing kari. And that was probably the time. It was a very influential time for my life. जहाँ पे I came to a realization that maybe if things continue like this, I think our country is going to look very different. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, just with these day-to-day operations. And I think that was the time when I was very clear that I have to move towards something which is tech related. I didn't have a lot of experience from a building perspective, so I thought the best way to absorb the learning in shortest possible time is to potentially join a VC fund, जहाँ पे I can interact with smart entrepreneurs like you guys and probably shorten my learning journey. So I think that was the thought process, and after that it's been almost a couple of years with Nexus, and super excited to understand more about the startup ecosystem in Surat itself. A little bit about Nexus. So we are also an early stage fund. We started off back in 2006 actually, when there was an insight that India is going to be somewhere between Israel and China. Israel makes technologies for the globe. उनका internal consumption के लिए कुछ नहीं बनाते उधर, and China makes it only for their local consumption. So at least the founders of Nexus did have an insight that it's going to be somewhere in middle. So we want to capture both sides. So technologies which are built in India for the globe, Postman, Dhruva, Hasura, all of these are our portfolio companies, and काफी सारी companies which are there for the domestic consumption of things, like Snapdeal, like Unacademy, like Zepto recently. All of these are our portfolio companies for the domestic consumption predominantly. And check sizes again very flexible. We do seed, Series A stages, so anything from half a $1,000,000, $500,000 to something as around as $8 to $10 million. We usually come in, and pretty much sector agnostic. Have invested in founders from metros, from non-metros who moved to metros, but now looking to invest in people who are actually building in non-metros like Surat. So super excited to learn more about you guys.
Yes, thank you so much for that introduction. So during the conversation हम लोग try करेंगे कि being in Surat there are a lot of questions we have कि funding कैसे होती है, कहाँ से आती है. Before that, how many startup founders we have in the room? How many are looking forward to raise the funds? देखो सूरत में सबके पास पैसा है. Okay, how many of you feel कि VCs बहुत पैसा बनाते हैं, बहुत पैसा उनके पास, मतलब अंधाधुंध पैसा छाप रहे हैं? किसी ने VCs? Okay, so there's a quick story, there's a 2-line story in that. I think it will give you a very good insight about how VC world works. So you must be knowing about the Instagram and then how it got acquired by Facebook and everything. So the first of the investors, those who put money into the Instagram, Andreessen Horowitz, जो कि सिलिकॉन वैली बेस्ड वीसी फर्म है, उनका 250K का चेक साइज होता है. उन्होंने इंस्टाग्राम में पैसा डाला 250,000, एंड जब वो एग्जिट हुआ उनको 78 मिलियन मिला. यू विल 300 टाइम्स इतना पैसा बनाया उन्होंने. बट इफ यू गो डीप डाइव, ये खाली पहली लाइन थी, दिस वाज अ टाइटल कि दे मेड एग्जिट, उनको 300 टाइम्स उनको रिटर्न मिला. बट इफ यू गो टू द सेकंड लाइन, उनका टोटल फंड साइज था 1.5 बिलियन. दैट मीन उनको कम से कम 19 इंस्टाग्राम चाहिए थी सिर्फ ब्रेक इवन होने के लिए. फायदा तो भूल जाओ. So that's how difficult VC business is. So अगली बार अगर VC reply नहीं कर रहा है, so you know. Okay. So yes, that was just to set the context and quickly start. And one major question जो हमारे साथ होता है, and it happens to all of us, being a founder, हम लोगों को कई बार LinkedIn पे मैसेज आता है, hey Manoj, I found your profile very interesting, can we get connected? और हम लोग खुशी से मतलब पूरे मोहल्ले बता देते हैं, हाँ यार टाइटन कैपिटल का मेल आया भाई का. How do you when you are, because I understand this is kind of a sniffing around what's happening in the market, so might be Subodh, question for you. When you look at the profile of the founder of a company, how do you determine कि ये interesting है, इससे बात करनी है, या ये not interesting है? How does it work?
So at least I'll speak from a whiteboard perspective, since I mentioned that we are typically investors that come in when founders के पास सिर्फ एक idea होता है and they have not done anything to kind of take it to execution, or like even spend 1 or 2 months on execution. So a lot of times actually difficult to find companies on LinkedIn which are at that stage. So most of the companies that we have ended up investing in or partnering with have actually come through reference, have actually come through a network. So I think the sniffing around bit that you mentioned about, we do reach out to founders when we think we need to kind of when we can learn something from them, and when there is scope for us to partner and actually help them. But most of the time when we invest, they are actually not there in the group, unfortunately. We have to kind of identify them, and we have to get in touch with them through our network, which is kind of organically built over the last 8 to 10 years. Again, when I talk about network, I don't know if the audience here knows that Whiteboard was founded by Sandeep, who was the co-founder of Recharge, and Mr. Anshu, who has been in the venture capital space for the last 8 to 10 years and have now spent 3 years in the venture capital space. So that's the network that. Yeah, is this better? Sorry. Yeah. So as I said, it's largely network driven, the deals that we have done, and hence we don't really spend too much time kind of looking for companies on LinkedIn. It's generally the network that kind of introduces us to founders or ideas that we already have a thesis on. So we've kind of taken a different approach to investing. It's more thesis driven than kind of looking for opportunities that kind of present to us.
Sure, thank you. And Bhuvan, how about you? Like for Nexus, like you also just focus on more on the referral and network, or you go around and kind of look at the profiles, look at the founder's profile, company profiles, and if yes, then what works as a magnet? ऐसा क्या कर सकते हैं कि that really attract the investors? चलो एक बार बात तो हो जाए.
Yeah, no, I think it's a mix of both for us. Whenever it comes from our network, when we're getting a referral, I think in general the level of excitement is high because it's coming through somebody vetted and we trust them already, right? When it's actually the other way, where we are reaching out to them, discovering them on platforms like LinkedIn, I think in most of the situations it's not mentioned what they're building. It's either kept as stealth or maybe something undisclosed and all of that. So it's very difficult to build a point of view that this is the space that I'm interested in. However, there are still some markers left for our judgment before the conversation. I think it's more to do with the profile of the founders. I think I think it differs with every investor personally, but I think for me, what really matters is some of the experiences that they've had in the past. I think there's a theoretical term called founder market fit, where it's more about whether the founder and the market are actually synergic or not in a certain sense, right? So for example, if somebody's worked in Visa or maybe and then is trying to build something in payment space, then I'll be very interested. If let's say somebody's worked in Sibyl and then potentially wants to build something in wealth or maybe and there, I think that inherently makes a lot of sense to me. But of course, we always keep that with a pinch of salt because these are very few variables to make a judgment on. I think you at least should have one conversation with somebody, probably understand what they're building, life story kya hai unka pretty much, and then we take a call. I think it's very rare to build a strong point of view of moving ahead or actually being on the sidelines just from looking at the profile.
Sure, thanks. So when we talk about funds, what would you say, like what could be like that piece of advice to follow? What is the right time to raise? Because a lot of when we have stories from all over, लोग ideas stage पे भी कर लेते हैं, and then like someone said, you put in your first your money, थोड़ा कुछ prove करके बताओ, then you raise. What could be the mindset rather than the money set? पैसा मतलब है नहीं. What should be the mindset when what do you think? What is the right time to raise from the founder's perspective?
I think okay, so in terms of the timeline, I would say that there are different archetypes of investors, pretty much, right? So maybe there are friends and families who you know of who have seen you grow up or like in a very specific phase of your life, and I think they can potentially trust you with whatever you're doing, right? So I think that is the first archetype. The second one is angels who either do this for a living or just as a hobby as well, where I think they're just stimulated by the ideas and maybe some of them are already founders in specific spaces who do carry certain, let's say, insights. And that's the second archetype. And the third are institutional funds, which would again be either like a micro VC or maybe like seed or Series A funds like ours. I think the risk profile is very different for all of them in a certain sense, right? And I think it is better to understand whom to target at what time. If let's say you're in the process of ideating, until and unless you're supremely well connected with the ecosystem and know some partners already at some of the funds, it becomes extremely difficult to raise funding there. because they don't have enough data points, either through traction or maybe through your profile to a certain sense, right? So the most logical step in that case is to either go for your friends and families, just to have some cash and to at least prove some traction on ground, or maybe reach out to angels, because there the ticket size is lower and their risk appetite is extremely high, right? So I would say to build anything you need capital. It's actually more about whom to raise at what time than when to raise, I would say. Because you do need capital. I mean, we can't beat the bush around the fact that you can build something without it, and where you raise from, I think is important.
So kind of both the points kind of point out to the one thing, like when you're building and if you're looking for the investors, have to reach out. Because the first thing would be your personal branding has to be important, because like you said, people on the LinkedIn, they don't write a lot about it. They don't talk a lot about कि हम लोग क्या कर रहे हैं. So you should make use of these platforms, go around, talk about it, क्या कर रहे हो, किसके साथ कर रहे हो, कौन सा product बना रहे हो, how this product, who's the target. So that will give an investor also kind of a clarity. Like when to raise, I think like Bhuvan said, it could be you deciding. If you have money, you can start, and then if you have the friends and family, they could also help you in the initial days. And again, the risk profile makes a lot of sense. So when the next question would be how much to raise, because I'll tell you this question is very Surat specific. The people sitting here, they will be average sitting on a good amount of money, all of us. So how much to raise, this becomes very critical, because when you are running a company of a tier 2 city, 100% of expenses are not that high compared to Bangalore and Mumbai. But हम लोग जब चेक साइज की बात करते हैं, चेक साइज के बाद हम लोग उतनी ही करते हैं, $500,000, $1 million. हम लोग तो वही यूएस में, हम लोग यहाँ पे भी बातें यूएस डॉलर में ही करते हैं. So what should be that ideal ticket size that you think that, what should be that multiple that should be in your mind? How would a founder determine? कि हम लोग pitch बनाते हैं ना, आखिरी pitch पे आके हम दोस्तों को फोन करते हैं, यार ask में क्या लिखूं? So what should be, how can you determine that what should be the ticket size?
I think it depends. I think it will work.
Eventually.
I can
give it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it depends on what kind of market the company is kind of going after. To give one example of Nexus's portfolio, Zepto, right? We've all heard of Zepto.
Yeah.
They in a way kind of started a business that was unheard of, right? Obviously there were a couple of global equivalents in the US and Germany, but in India nobody was actually kind of building a platform like that. And I believe Nexus when they invested in Zepto, it was a pretty large round. The reason primarily for that was because this was a white space that existed in India. Second, first mover advantage in a business like that was critical. So again, in Zepto's case, that was a round which was kind of a one-off, right? Similar thing happened with Cred, which we are investors in. They raised a $25 million round, which was their first round, right? It was not a $500K or a $1 million round. And that was again a business which was one of a kind, right? Nobody had kind of built a network of people who were probably falling into the like top 2% of creditworthiness, right? So I think the industry that the business is going after makes a huge difference. If it's a clear white space, if there's no business that's been built, I think a lot of investors want to kind of back the company strongly and aggressively right from the start, so that first mover advantage kind of sticks. But apart from that, I think that $500K to, I would say, $1.5 to $2 million, that's a generic kind of fundraise that most companies do. When again there's a market which is kind of evident, the market size is kind of evident and already evaluated, but you still don't know if you're going to be a leader, right? And you're kind of taking a chance. Yeah, so that's how I would at least kind of break up the how fundraise should be looked at. Yeah, so if it's a clear white space, I think most companies should go after very, very large round to have first mover advantage.
Yeah, so like when and what, there cannot be a binary answer to it. It's more like the founder's conviction and the investor and the market you're going after are the first mover. So yeah. So, Bhuvan, most of times we listen from the investors that this business is good, but not good for the investment. What does it exactly? Because we get this feedback, कि business अच्छा है, but investable नहीं है. What does it mean? Like from the, if you kind of deep dive into that answer.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this partly was taken up in the previous panel also.
Yeah.
So I'll just potentially build on top of that. And this is my personal framework, so I'm happy to take on any feedback as well. But I think the way I look at a specific investment is in 3 layers. The first layer pretty much is about the product itself, and it pretty much has to do with how the product is interacting with the customers and all of that. And I think the simplest way to judge a good product is understanding what the problem they're running after. Is it deep enough or not? That is part one. The second part is, okay, if the problem is deep enough, the way to solve it, is it even 10x better than some of the other alternatives that are there in the market right now? So at least that builds certain confidence that okay, it's a decent product, right? And there are some great products that already exist. I think, I mean, not to put out any controversy, but I think there are some businesses there's some products which are amazing, but the business associated with them is not so great. So the second layer in this entire framework comes off the business itself, where I think there are some fundamental things like, okay, can you price the product well or not? Do you have some pricing power associated with this? Then some things around unit economics. Let's say how much money do you have to pay to acquire the customer, and how much will that customer give you in terms of the lifetime value to a certain extent? Would that ratio make sense or not? Then things around how much capital would you need to run this business? Is this capital efficient or not? Maybe both from a long-term investment perspective and from a working capital perspective as well. So I think these 2-3 questions help us move from a good product to even a good business, pretty much. Then I think the third layer is around the investment part of it, where it can be a great business, but it might not be a great investment. And I'll tell you the questions that come with it. Maybe things around, I think as I think Naman mentioned in the previous one, around non-linearity of let's say how things are moving now, right? It can be a great business, it can be cash generating, it can be operating in a very steady way, but it might be very slow to grow. I think for a VC inherently that would be a red flag. Then maybe something around the team. Maybe the business is doing amazingly well, but somehow at least the investor is not convinced that the team is the right fit to sort of continue scaling this business. I think then also it becomes a red flag. Then maybe something around how big the market in itself is, because you can build a nice profitable business in a small market, but in order to be a VC fundable business, I think it has to operate in a huge TAM opportunity, something to the magnitude of more than $5 billion at least as a proxy that we use. So I think there are 3 layers. There can be a good product but not a good business. There can be a good business but not a good investment per se. And I think in our ecosystem we use the term dhanda. So it can be a good dhanda, it can be a good business, but not a good investment for us sometimes. So that's, I hope I've made myself clear. Happy to take a question.
So it depends on the market opportunity, how big it can be, and unit economics and everything you talked about. So yeah, I think I kind of make a lot of sense. So this was all about the basic terms that we always think about when the funding comes through. So might be the next question, what I'm planning to ask you, the answer should come from the original experience, not the theoretical one. So might be Subodh, when you look at you must be looking at a lot of pitch decks. What are those slides that you see? यार इस slide की ज़रूरत भी क्या थी? What are such slides that you have come across from the real experience and look at the pitch deck कि इस slide का कोई ज़रूरत नहीं था. And I'm asking you because when we kind of make our pitch deck, we send it to जितनों को भी जानते हैं ना, we send it to everyone. क्या बता कौन कौन सा अच्छा, फिर एक उसने बताया करते करते pitch deck बहुत बड़ा हो जाता है. So from your perspective, what are those slides जो इसकी कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है?
So at least one that really comes to my mind is at least the stage that we are at, 5-year projections. And what's the roadmap for the next 5 years? So for the stage that we kind of operate at, the next 1 year में क्या होने वाला है वो ही नहीं पता. जिसने दिसंबर 2019 में ट्रैवल रिलेटेड स्टार्टअप शुरू किया था, मार्च 2020 में उनको बंद करना पड़ा. It happened with a portfolio company of ours, so now pivoted to a different model altogether. So I think, but having said that, having clarity as to what you want to do with the money that you're raising from us or any other investor that operates at our stage is essential, right? We don't partner with any company who don't have clarity on that, and it has to come from the founders. With obviously, if required, we can kind of add our kind of advice and suggestions on that. But 5 projections and what's the roadmap for the next 5-10 years, IPO kab hoga, all of that, I don't think it makes sense at least at the stage that we operate.
So roadmap makes sense, but not
roadmap for the next 12 to 24 months is fine.
Immediate steps.
Immediate roadmap is fine, but 5 years is stretching it.
How about you, Bhuvan? Like, what do you think? What is that slides that you've seen and feel कि यार इससे नहीं भी होता तो भी चल जाता?
No, I think so. Again, I mean, it's a trade of the job that most of the ideas that we come across, we probably have seen them in the past. Very unlikely for us to come across a completely new idea altogether. So I think I can't blame entrepreneurs for this, but things around the macros of why it makes sense and maybe broader numbers around how big the market is predominantly segmented across like 20 pivot tables. I think broadly doesn't make sense because mostly we are convinced on the fact that kuch to banega idhar. So I think it's a good sanity number to have, but I think it's something which doesn't give us a lot of new insights predominantly. So I mean, most of the time we ask people to just skim through it like quickly, just move on. Being absolutely candid.
So numbers, but on the macro level, not on the micro level. Yeah. Another one would be generally whenever we get this request, okay, that we want to be on a call with you. What are those things that you think कि founder को investment के बारे में या investor के बारे में VC firm के बारे में थोड़ा सा पहले से homework करना चाहिए? What do you think? What are those few nuances that a founder should know about before getting onto the call with the investor or the VC firm?
So I think one thing for sure is that they should do a proper due diligence of the investor, not in terms of like speaking to people and doing a background check, but at least knowing what their portfolio is like. For example, अगर कोई SaaS company है that is wanting to raise from Whiteboard, they should know that does Whiteboard make sense. For example, if I had to take the example of Onsurity, right? Onsurity, obviously we invested a very small check there along with Nexus and now Kona Capital, but I think the immediate synergy was that we have 50 companies in our portfolio. We have 100 companies in our extended network apart from our portfolio. So we could immediately give them at least access to those 150 companies that they could kind of do business with, right? So at least I would expect, like Kulin has already raised from us, but I would have at least expected कि यार Kulin बोलेंगे हमें कि यार आपसे funding तो ले लेंगे, but आप मुझे 100 कंपनी से connect करोगे कि नहीं? So that would be like if the founder has done that and asked me that question, then I'm like, okay, he's done his work. So due diligence, like very basic due diligence on what our thesis is, which you can understand from our portfolio, and I think before taking money, you should speak to your network of founders who are mutual connects, so that you understand, does this investor kind of make sense for us. So yeah, basic DD on portfolio.
Yeah, and while you are answering that, but if you can also add, like, when during that call, what would be the right question? Because generally, we have seen that when VCs give them the opportunity, do you have any questions? And generally, the questions, एक ही question होता है, किससे पैसा कब मिलेगा? So what could be the good question that would seriously impress you as an investor or as a VC? यानी ये कुछ काम का पूछ रहा है.
Right. No, so I think I'll answer both, right? So the first one around what to know specifically before pitching to somebody, and I think this is a very practical advice, pretty much, right? Because once you move slightly up the ladder in VC, I think you start focusing on very few on few spaces, 2-3 spaces to a certain extent. Just to give an example, I think maybe some partner in our fund might be a big promoter of Bharat. And maybe some partner would completely dismiss the idea that something can be built for a Bharat TG altogether. So I think and this is more relevant for people who are more senior, at least in the organization, but always have a point of view around what their internal thesis is on specific areas. The last thing you want to do is pitch to the wrong person in a specific fund. So maybe through your networks or somewhere, I think it will be very helpful to figure out who would be the right person to pitch. So I think that is the answer to the first one. I think the second one, a lot of people ask me what's the process like. Very basic questions. I think if I were a founder and I were pitching to let's say an investor, I would just ask them what's their what would stop them to invest right now at the very moment. And I think the reason for that is most of the people already have made up their mind whether they want to move ahead or not during the call itself. They mostly say that, okay, we want to come back, but I don't think the answer pretty much changes. And when you give them that time, I think they come back with a very straightforward, very generic response as to why they would not want to move ahead. So if you want to get the most candid response, just some way or the other make them talk at that time and at least get that feedback right away. I think that would be and be as open as possible to hear about their opinions, right? Because if let's say you're moving ahead with a closed opinion, maybe they'd want to not even go into the hassle of maybe arguing against you. So give them a chance to maybe freely open up their mind, but don't delay the entire feedback cycle at all.
That's like while VCs or investors, they are trying to know about you, trying to get information about you. This could be your chance that you also check with your network that what VC firm you should reach out to based on the product you are building or the kind of environment you are in. Also, do not waste the opportunity if you get that chance to ask the questions, because not many founders get that opportunity to ask right questions. So next one would be, should we only reach out to investor for the money, or is it also okay to reach out for the brainstorming? कई बार like specifically if you're sitting in a city like tier 2 Surat, and like also Naman mentioned, we do not have a lot of people जिन्होंने ये journey करी है. So is it okay that we can just reach out to investor or a VC firm that just for the brainstorming, soundboarding, कि भाई पैसा नहीं चाहिए, बताओ ना यार ये कैसे काम करता है, how does it work?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think we being absolutely kind, I think we do engage in a lot of brainstorming conversations also. The only caveat to this is we come across at least 5 to 10 companies every day, new companies. So the volume is huge for any fund to manage. I think a direct reach out just for brainstorming might not garner a lot of attention from everybody, and I'm being very honest. But I think what you can potentially do is talk to somebody through your network, get a let's say a warm intro to somebody in the team, and just I think everybody is going to be open for a brainstorming, because even for us it's a good top of the funnel, because then we'll be able to witness your entire journey right from the start, right, and we'll be able to make a much more informed decision whether this is an opportunity you want to back or not.
So brainstorming makes sense, yeah. So actually I was hearing to a podcast, and actually this question comes from there कि कई बार होता है we reach out to an investor और investor कहता है this is not a good time now, might be we can keep in touch, but then as a founder उसको दिल पे ले लेते हैं, क्या keep in touch, मेरे को नहीं रहने का. Do you think that makes sense, like यार बात तो हो ही गई है, एक बार तो बात हो ही गई है, चलो ना, मतलब how about like let's say if I'm a founder, I reach out to you, so let's keep in touch, and then I seriously keep in touch with you. I keep updating you every month, every 3 months कि क्या मैंने achieve किया, where are we? Can that change the decision? Does it ever happen, or does it make sense in the long term?
I think it does, till a company has not gone beyond a certain stage. So, because by design we are kind of investors, as I said, which invest very, very early. So if that company, when they had approached us, say at idea stage, maybe we were not fully convinced about the market, right? Yeah. And let's say over the next 3 months, they prove to us that इसमें कुछ धंधा बन सकता है by showing numbers, by showing traction, by showing business, right? At that point, if they think we still make sense for them as a business, because our promise is to come in at idea stage, then they should I would say the founders should keep in touch. If they don't think, then I think beyond a certain stage, there's no point engaging, right? Because you've actually, if you've done well, you've graduated from point A to point B, which is obviously a positive growth curve for you. So I think at least for whiteboard, from a whiteboard perspective, because we are so state specific, we generally love to keep in touch. If we are like not fully there on a company, on a thesis, but we love the team, till the point they don't get irritated by us. But again, beyond a stage, it does not make sense for them to partner with a fund like Whiteboard. Honestly, the suggestion would be that actually they should not kind of invest that kind of time. So yeah, that's how I would think about it.
Sure. What would be your point? Like keeping in touch makes sense?
No, I think I have personal anecdotes जहाँ पे I can give you a very specific example also. So last year in September, I guess we met a company. We liked the team. We were not sold on the idea. We were like, it's very difficult to build a big company here. I think the good part was because the team was nice. I think there was some motivation from our side also to keep in touch with them. But I think the good part was they kept us updated about everything that was happening at their end. We used to get monthly updates on how things are progressing, and I think that cadence that they put in made us a lot more serious about them. At least to even think, ki, okay, we have our biases. Maybe we can spend some more time to understand if there's something that can be built up. We spent, I think, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, built our thesis, finally understood that there's a big opportunity existing and not a lot of players that are there in the space. And in February ended up backing them for the Series A. So they raised a small seed, I think, in September last year when we passed on them. But just because we were updated about every small move that they were making, made us quite serious about that opportunity. Of course, over time, luckily, somehow our thesis developed in a positive direction, which ended up us in writing a check.
So guys, keeping in touch makes a lot of sense. Like, even if the investor has said, I don't think they ever say no. मैंने आज तक ऐसा email नहीं देखा. It's like we are passing it for now. But so keeping in touch makes a lot of sense. And the part of that podcast itself, as I seen somewhere, Kunal Shah का एक line था that as a founder you need to be that salesman that you cannot stop selling. Like you have to be there. And the good example that he put up with, like when you are in college, and most of the people we don't do it because society बोलेगी we don't think about love marriages, boyfriend and girlfriends. So if you like a girl, you have to keep pursuing. And if you like a boy, you have to keep pursuing. So that's a kind of and we don't do it because हम लोग society में लगता है यार कोई क्या बोलेगा, छिछोरा बोलेगा. But that's not the case. You have to put in the right words, and you can keep the investor updated, and you never know that they might like what you are doing. So
a great example of persuasion and keeping investors updated is Misho's story. So before they raised from Elevation, they obviously were rejected twice by the team at Elevation Capital, and they kept on kind of sharing updates for 4 to 5 months, and eventually Elevation obviously was blown away by the numbers that they were doing and the number of people who were using the platform and the growth that they were showing. So
thanks for sharing that. Has it ever happened, Bhuvan, कि कोई founder is going through his pitch deck with you, and you look at him, you try to listen to him, the whole story, founder's background, what he has done, what he's trying to build, and you feel यार founder तो सही है, मेरे product goal है. And then you feel like you actually sit with him, or in a personal capacity, or might be as a VC firm, कि यार founder तो ठीक है, but इसको थोड़ा सा guide कर दिया ना, उसको product भी ठीक बन जाएगा. Does it ever happen with you, like, or any experiences?
Yes, no. So I think it's a double-edged sword. To be fairly honest, because अंदर से there's a lot of inkling कि अच्छा, because everybody has their own biases. Sometimes we might say that, okay, this is not a good idea, we really like you guys, but maybe difficult for us to move ahead. I think if they don't change and they continue, I think it becomes a breaking point for us, because it will be difficult for us to engage. But if they're changing their idea on our saying, then it means that maybe they weren't convinced about it in the first place, or maybe the conviction wasn't as deep. which also makes us question whether this is something worth backing or not, because there's going to be a lot of points of doubts in the journey over time, right? And if let's say the founder is not completely valid, it doesn't make sense to move ahead. So I'm not going to say that we don't tell them that okay, maybe you can think about some adjacent spaces, but it's always comes with a pinch of salt. Yeah, to be fairly honest.
And I think I kind of rightly said it could be a double-edged sword for you as well. Yeah. So but like when founders are pitching to you, what are those first 5 minutes? What that close you get? इसको तो आगे सुनना है. You know what could be what happens in those first 5 minutes? Because I think most of the times, not just a pitch, but even a movie or a serial when we watch, हम लोग पहले 5-10 मिनट में मेकअप और माइंड यार मजा नहीं आ रहा. So what happens in first 5 minutes की founder pitch में मजा आ रहा है कि नहीं आ रहा है?
So I think before we get onto any call with any founder, any team, we already have some background information about what they're building. So either we'll have a deck or a Notion doc or a Word doc, right? Which gives enough information about what they're building. At least for us, the first 5 minutes, we want to really understand कि founders ये बनाना क्यों जा रहा है, right? And if we see that passion, I think it's a very qualitative thing. I can't really quantify this or kind of. It's a very qualitative thing. If you see that spark in there, right? कि हाँ इनको ये बनाना ही है कुछ भी करके, right? And they'll kind of live and die by this idea and this business. Then obviously it kind of intrigues us, and we love to kind of spend more time with the founders. But generally, I think, as you said, right, we end up always honoring the call, and we end up spending the 45 minutes or 1 hour that was promised. But yeah, the first 5 minutes are actually important. It's a very qualitative thing that if you see a spark in the eye of the founder, then you really are kind of intrigued by that conversation.
So kind of proving the conviction.
Proving conviction, yeah, because you already know about the business and you're fairly well studied.
Yeah. So on the same lines, like what would be your when you speak to the founders? What happens in those first 5 minutes apart from the looking for the conviction? Because there could be a lot more things when issuing the data and everything. So
I think I'm thinking right now it's more about if the person I'm talking to is telling me something which I haven't even heard of ever in my life about let's say whatever space they're building. Because my logic is if let's say somebody is building has dedicated let's say a year, a couple of years, maybe a few months onto something, the depth should be higher than most of the other people, and that should translate in the insights that they carry in their head about some space. So if let's say I'm getting on a call and in the first 5 minutes I'm getting to know something which I've never even heard of, I think that makes me super excited. And it can happen either way. It can be like, okay, I haven't heard of it and it sounds stupid.
Yeah.
But it will still get me excited.
Yeah, makes sense. And during your experience, what you've seen कि you've gone ahead with the founders, बात आगे बढ़ गई है, term sheet हो गई है, and what is that one point like most of the first time founders they lack, and that only comes out in due diligence, because there are a lot of here who are the first time product founders are we get stuck जब due diligence आता है and we have never thought about what those common points or the common metrics as might be like both of you can answer it. Bhuvan, if you can go first. What are those common metrics जो first time founder miss ही कर जाते, देखते भी नहीं है, फिर जब वो due diligence आता है तब समझ आता है यार ये तो ना हमने पूछा था ना इन्होंने बताया था. What could be those like specifically the first time founders?
Yeah, I think there's no set answer to this, because I think I've come across some people who have had strengths in certain areas, weakness in certain areas. I think just to give buckets, I would say things around legal processes do take a lot of time. I think maybe having somebody in your network or maybe some representative there, I think does always help, because otherwise it just ends up lengthening the process significantly, I would say. Then I think the second one is I think around having a solid data room. There have been occasions where I think there hasn't been enough structured data around let's say all of that. A lot of back and forth has happened. So maybe some structure and some foresee I think might be better. But otherwise I think it's a very case in point thing. Yeah.
So Manojji, I'm sorry to interrupt while the discussion is going in a great way. The diligence point that you were talking of, due diligence point. So it is fair enough for some company which has taken some traction and there is some POC and some venture capital partners are investing. That is fair enough. But a company like Whiteboard Partners, who claim to invest at a very early means really very early stage of idea stage. So at that point in time, the founder probably has nothing else than the idea. I mean, कोई company नहीं है, कोई team नहीं है. I mean, he just has one thing, and that is to talk. So at that point in time, how do you take care of due diligence first thing? And another question also for you. Manoj ji asked you at sometime earlier about a company whom you are talking at a really idea stage. Irrespective of what ultimately unfolds, it is at idea stage. Ultimately, it might be whatever company. So, what would be the typical ask that you would honor, and what would be the typical dilution that, I mean, the idea stage में तो idea ही होती है, वो बाद में क्या होने वाला है पता नहीं है किसी को, and they invest in that idea. So, and for that type of transactions, typical transaction would be the same. So
I think I'll answer the second question first and then go to the next question. So I think dilution. So the activity that we generally do with a founder or a founding team when we decide on dilution, when we decide on valuation, funds, the raise structure, etc., we try to envisage or at least plan कि by the end of year 3 or year 5 at least, जब तक founders के कुछ shares vest हो गया, how much equity can they have, and at that point can that business kind of become profitable or self-sustainable, right? So अगर year 5 पे if the founders have say 40% equity and the business is also sustainable, it's a great outcome, right? Because for us we want that outcome. Because if a founder had 2% equity in the company, by the time they did an IPO or kind of given they got an exit, and if I go at 5%, it would be a shame on us, to be honest. So we generally do this. We do this exercise where we actually structure key, and obviously it does not go as per planned, right? Because बहुत सी बार things don't happen as planned, and we need to raise an emergency like fundraise, etc. So as an exercise, we try to at least in our heads and on an Excel take the founders to a point at the Series A, B stage जहाँ पर उनके पास इतनी equity है that they've made enough money, right? So it's, and obviously the amount of money that the business requires. For example, a company like Dimension that we have invested in, it's a men's innerwear brand. So you know, we all have used Rupa, Lux, Cozy, and it's a legacy brand where जहाँ पर कुछ innovation आया नहीं था. So Dimension kind of came with very two simple innovations in that space कि generally innerwear should be sweat absorbent and it should not stain, right? There should not be any stains on it, right? And it kind of built on that premise. So वो business में we had a fair idea that beyond the first 2 rounds of funding, मोटा मोटी we'll have enough clarity on ये business sustainable कब बन जाएगा, right? As against a tech company, as against a credit, for example, जहाँ पर the discovery of business model is still a process, right? After year 3, year 4. So important कि year 3 or year 5 में founders को आपको मतलब कितनी equity चाहिए, and obviously the type, the domain in which they operate. So that's important. So but rule of thumb is कि 10-15% or probably 20% in the first round, and we typically invest up to $500,000. 3.5 crores or 4 crore rupees. That's the highest we invest in a company at that stage. So against that we typically would like to have 8 to 10% because the entry point is very very early. And to answer the diligence question, as you rightly said, कुछ है नहीं मतलब diligence करने के लिए. What we do is background check of the founders. If it's come through a reference, so it makes the job easier. But financial तो कुछ है नहीं. So yeah, it's a fairly straightforward process. Yeah.
Yep. So thanks for answering that. Now, in the favor of time, actually the next questions that I will be asking you should be more of a rapid round. Generally, we're going to quickly go through, and I think those are the questions where most of the people will be interested. Because actually, most of the people sitting are, I know them directly. They have been friends, and because Surat is a small ecosystem. First one might be any one of you. Maybe you can go first. How important is the language while pitching? क्योंकि हम सबको लगता है कि English में pitch करेंगे ना तो ही पैसा मिलेगा. Is it okay if someone comes and pitch in Hindi?
Absolutely. I think confidence matters more.
Yeah.
Whatever. I think English and Hindi usually works. I don't understand any other language beyond that. So Hindi is also fine with me, but as long as there's enough conviction, aggression, and confidence.
Yeah. So language doesn't matter, correct? No. And might be you can take it as a feedback. कि अगर ecosystem ज़्यादा बड़ा है, you can look for a Gujarati partner on the board.
Maybe take some classes, I guess.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Next one. Whenever you are looking at a founder, be it in a personal pitch or on a video call, have you rejected anyone जैसे ढंग के कपड़े भी नहीं पहने या इसका background गलत है? Have you ever done that?
Never. Video call में तो पता ही नहीं चलता वो क्या कर रहा है. Like except but never.
Yeah. So appearance, language doesn't matter. So and actually this is something I always मैं जितने भी लोगों में मिलता हूँ. Seriously, language doesn't matter. You can be there. Just be there. Talk about your idea. Talk about your product. It could be in any language. Just be yourself. Your conviction, your confidence. That's what matters. एक है ना एक क्वेश्चन हम सबके उसमें होगा. I don't know if you heard about this question and we always discuss it. हम लोग अपने छोटे सब लोग डिसाइड करते हैं कि यार वो XYZ स्टार्टअप है वो तो पैसा भी नहीं बना रहे. मैं तो इतना पैसा बना रहा हूँ फिर भी मुझे फंड नहीं करो उसको फंड दिए जा रहे हैं. Just answer that in 30 seconds. What you know from being inside the system. आपको क्या लगता है मतलब does it अच्छा हमको लगता है वो सही लग रहा है या what is it?
तो simple term में I think वो अभी पैसा नहीं बना रहे but hope कर रहे हैं at least investors और founders कि वो आगे जाके पैसा बनाएंगे. Reason simple ये होता है कि अगर आप किसी undifferentiated market में आ रहे हैं तो आपको कुछ incentive देना पड़ता है to get some initial traction and वो somewhat mostly price discounts के form में operate करता है. एंड एक बारी जब आप थोड़ी फुटिंग बना लेते हैं देन आई थिंक आपका रेवेन्यूज भी स्केल अप होता है कॉस्ट भी मिनिमाइज होता है. रेवेन्यू क्यों स्केल अप होगा क्योंकि आपका वॉलेट शेयर बढ़ेगा यूजर्स का फ्रीक्वेंसी बढ़ेगा कॉस्ट कम होंगे इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल आएगा. आई थिंक ब्रांड बनेगी तो यूजर्स को अक्वायर कम पैसों में कर पाओगे तो वो मूवमेंट होता है. बट ऑफकोर्स मतलब अभी पैसा नहीं बना रहे बट बाद में होपफुली बनाएंगे.
सो दुनिया उम्मीद पे कायम है. सो लाइक दिस योर पॉइंट ऑन दैट.
I think because as I said like again I mentioned about the stage that we operate at. कोई पैसा बना रहा ही नहीं होता है तब उनको पता भी नहीं कैसे बनाएंगे in most cases. So it's still like an idea, a business idea, and business model is a discovery in that journey. So yeah, I think fundamentally at our stage पता नहीं होता है and yeah, I think linearity, non-linearity, I think the other panel had covered, right? A lot of businesses are meant to be run profitably because that's the market they can cater to, and then there are so many businesses where the potential to kind of have a large market share is extremely like highly probable. So it's just two different approaches.
Sure. Just one word answer. Value or valuation?
Value any day. I mean, valuation is a sign of time, I would say.
Yeah. So story or numbers? What would you more like when you're talking to a founder?
At our stage, story.
Story? Okay. How about you, Bhuvan? Founder or product? What matters for you when you are looking?
I think founder. Because founder is the one building the product.
Yeah, nice. You got a lot of many founders here. So proven market or a new category?
New category.
Okay. Challenges are being taken. Single founder or multiple founders?
Multiple founders with contemporary skills.
Multiple founder, contemporary and complementary.
Complementary, sorry.
Yeah,
not
complementary.
Sorry, my bad.
वो भी पीछे डांस शुरू हो जाएगा contemporary. Bollywood जैस सब कुछ हमारे यहाँ.
Complementary skills.
Yeah. So that brings me to the end of the questions that I have. Might be I give you guys an opportunity if you have anything to ask each other because both of you are representing different firms. मतलब आपको लगा कि ऐसे पूछने का मौका नहीं मिलता है कभी. If you are at this podium, you have got the mic in your hand. If you want.
Onsurity की board meeting next कब करनी है?
कुलीन बोल रहे मैं लेकर आया हूँ सबको.
अरे कुलीन is not gonna book our return tickets.
अब बोला सूरत में ही रहो तुम लोग. Yep. So guys, thank you so much. You were a fantastic spot, and I hope for all the founders here, I could ask the questions on your behalf. Just I think we have someone. Yes, please.
Can I?
Yes, please.
So I have 2-3 queries specifically for
Might be just we can ask one question because again the favor of time, and then these guys will be here and you can always touch with them.
Okay, good enough. So when you say you do about investment of $300 US dollars, right? Yeah. At about 20% equity. So is it usually upfront investment or is it phase investment with phase equity?
Kind of depends. So we have done both, but most of the times it's entirely upfront. The place where we have done it in a staggered manner is where the company the premise was built on a very strong IP product, right? For example, we invested in a company which is making headgear for brain stimulation. But in that kind of in that company, the first prototype is ready, but we have not really done any. We've not really understood what market acceptability it will have. So there we have invested like most of our money in the first tranche, but we have kept some for the second tranche. So, but most of the cases it's upfront, entirely upfront.
But then as the early investor, do you not prefer to do what you call not equity but the other? Not that fund.
Convertible.
Convertible second, yes.
No, at least for Whiteboard, we like to have skin in the game right from the start. नहीं तो मजा ही नहीं है.
So, favor of time? Yes, please.
I have for the benefit of all the first-time founders, can you list down the top 5 red flags for investments? When you actually look at the pitch decks, what are the red flags for investments?
भुवन इसलिए मुझे 100 गिना तुम अभी तो.
I think low TAM is a red flag for sure. Operating in a small market is definitely one. We not having a very strong sense on business model, how you're gonna make money. Maybe there's some ambiguity in a lot of people. I think that's a big red flag. Third is, I think, not having enough tech talent in the team right from the start. I think that really matters. Because some of the things are really foundational. You want somebody in your team to pick that up. Fourth is potentially around go-to-market. Right? Maybe not having a sense on how we're going to acquire those users in the first place. Just having an assumption. I think these are the more relevant ones. I can just give another reason to complete 5, but I think this is what makes it.
Sure. Anything to add?
To be honest, but founder market fit maybe in some cases where it's a operations heavy business and none of the founders come from that kind of background. So,
sure.
Yeah, but those are areas.
And yeah, I think just to add one more thing, it's more about identifying the opportunity in a very top-down way. I think that's kind of a red flag because then you don't carry a lot of unique insights. Then you've just come through the conclusion, look, I want to build this space by reading some report or maybe talking to some expert.
Yeah.
It has to come with some unique life experience.
That's very.
Yeah, so might be the last one. Sure, yeah, please.
Unlike ongoing business activity where you have the performance known, you have the history of the business known. So parting the equity with the investors from the founder's point of view or the owner's point of view becomes very easy because you have the valuation, the numbers all in place, and the methodologies are there. The performance of the companies are listed. How do you, as a startup, when you do the parting the equity from the investor's point of view, how do you decide on the percentage of the equity? What is the basis for that? Or at the same time, what is the advice from the founder's point of view? How much equity you should be parting? So, what is the basis that you take for this?
So, to be honest, I think for at least the first round investor, because the company is so early, it's important for that investor to also have enough skin in the game. As Kulin also mentioned, and all the other founders mentioned that LPs को पैसा return करना है. So if we have enough skin in the game, if we have say 10 to 15% in the company, it keeps us going. It doesn't make us sleep well at night if things are going wrong in that company, and we have enough incentive because we have decided to be formidable investors in that company. So it's not only our money at stake, but it's also reputation. So early stage investors, or rather early stage founders, should not shy away from kind of giving out, or should not be too specific about what they want to dilute. If it's in a certain range, 10 to 15%, or for very, very risky businesses, 15 to 20%, you should just kind of come to an amicable number and close the deal. But yeah, the investor should have enough skin in the game. And if you really want to partner with that investor, so आपको थोड़ा तो incentive देना पड़ेगा.
Yeah, I think just to add to it, there's no formula to decide how much a loss-making company should be valued at, right? And finance theory doesn't give us that power. It's all about two variables: how much money you want to raise and how much you want to dilute. It's a negotiation at the end of the day. Investors want to maximize their let's say stake, and founders want to minimize it. They have to reach a sweet spot.
But both has to take some certain position to start with.
Yeah, I think.
So what is the position from the founder's point of view? The basis on which they take the position.
I can give you some historical sense, some number around that. But I think at a seed stage, we would be interested in let's say getting a stake of somewhere north of 18 to 20%. Because I think in a lot of businesses there's a lot of further investment that ends up happening. So we want to be relevant with at least double-digit ownership over the course of time, at least for the company. But again, it's a function of the market. It's a function of how much they're raising and a bunch of things.
So, majority of the people in the room have been on the other side and given you all a 2 minutes elevator pitch. Can you all give a 2 minutes elevator pitch to people why they should approach your fund?
The website would do the work. So I think as I mentioned, maybe 3-4 pointers, I guess, just to help. One of the oldest funds in the country, the largest homegrown fund, came out with the insight of cross-border technology probably before anybody else. Had the flexibility to even venture out in domestic consumption story. Very few investments, maybe in a year 10 to 12 investments, which is way lesser than what an early stage fund would operate with, which means that our level of commitment is much higher and the amount of time we spend per company is much higher. So pretty much like a co-builder than just an optionality investor.
So I probably can't take 2 minutes since you are running out of time. But 10 seconds, I think one of those rare funds which is willing to partner with founders at a stage where the journey is so painful and the journey is full of challenges and hurdles and there's nothing proven out. But we are again excited to partner with them. What we at least say is that मैं कितना भी pitch कर दूँ whiteboard के बारे में, it will not work. Best is that I can introduce you to 10 founders that are in our portfolio company and hopefully they'll speak good things about us.
So guys, we had Subodh Zaluri from Whiteboard Capital and Bhuvan Vizawat from Nexus Ventures. We talked about everything, when to raise, how much to raise, and eventually it called. There's one thing that I have learned. I was speaking to one of the founders during one of the marketing events, and we said one thing very clearly that कि हमको तो कहीं ना कहीं से कोई ना कोई दूसरा VC पे पैसा दे ही देगा. मतलब they need us more than we need them. So you have to keep that always upper hand when you are in this investment game, that you have to be flexible 100%, but at the same time you need to trust yourself. आपको अपने आप पे भरोसा करना है कि you will get some correct investment partner that would support you in your journey, because startup journey is not 1 year, 2 year, and I listen to a lot of founders. It's a long journey, 10-12 साल की journey. So you need to find a correct partner in terms of a VC, those who be there with you when you need soundboarding, when you need other supports and everything. So guys, that brings us to the end of this particular discussion. Thank you so much. Thank you both the speakers we had. And Thanks for your time. So guys, my name is Manoj Chadwani. You can connect with me on Instagram, LinkedIn or Facebook. Thank you so much for your time, and Michael, just pass it back to Puneet. And thank you to Chamber of Commerce, thank you to Onsurity to bring SaasBoomi to bring all these people from different corners of the cities to here, so that हम लोग यहाँ पे बैठ के मतलब एक we don't have to go anywhere. हम लोग पता है सूरत में कुछ हो नहीं रहा है. तो सूरत में बैठे बैठे बैंगलोर मुंबई सब यहीं आ गया है. So let's make this. Let's put more efforts, and I think we can bring a lot of people here. हमको थोड़ा सा effort डालना है. People are interested in coming here. Thank you so much. Good evening.
So लोग आए नहीं अभी funds भी आएंगे. So thank you Subodh, Bhuvan and Manoj. It's really exciting talk. Metrics behind startups and the question answer of the people. So sorry for the question answer time. The speakers are here only, so you can catch up after this vote of thanks and all. So I really I want to invite our chairman Mahendra Desai for concluding remarks for the both panel journey from 0 to 1 and metrics behind the startup.
So concluding remarks, summarizing what the experts today have said is a difficult task always. Parantu today, you all have come. Some might be investors or looking for investment, or some are founders. The best part about today's program, 0 to 1, so journey of all founders who have started from scratch. Somebody has left their job, taken a pain. They had given a good glimpse of what they had gone through, and you guys have to be ready to go through that. No pain, no gain. That is a mantra for any founder. So startup is a buzz. Nowadays is a buzzword. But any business, when you ask, no pain, no gain. So be ready to take the pain in a better way. Enjoy that pain. That's from all of the founders. All VCs, they are given an answer in a crisp manner. But like Manoj said, don't shy away to ask them for money. Present them well. Be ready for whatever the problems in you. Accept them, improve them, keep on improving. Build an great product or a great service, or be there with yourself. As they said, don't change your goal, or don't change your the way forward. So stick to your product, believe in yourself, and they are there for you. As VCs, they say that they are in a bigger league. But before VCs, friends and family. If you can't convince your friends and family, you're not going to get the second round. So please start from your friends and family, convince them, make a great product. Approach angel network among yourself, and then to VC. So that's a great message. Another good outing from all of them is how much to dilute. There is always a question, how much to dilute. So investors have to learn that taking more equity from founders is a sin. You are killing them. So be reasonable, be part of the journey. Don't take them as a lender, and take them as your partner. So whoever wants to invest, please understand, too much of equity, as he said, equity कितना भी ले लो, लेकिन पैसा नहीं आएगा, zero हो जाएगा. So that is the way to look at it. And last, as as a chairman, I would like to assure you and all the panelists that we keep on arranging programs. This year we intend to arrange around 50 programs or talks on startup. So whoever wants to come, whoever wants to use us as a chamber platform, we are ready to do partnership with them. Just approach me or approach chamber. We are ready to do that. And at the end of the year, we are going to plan a big event, 2 days, 3 days event, with the help of all venture capitalists or all startup founders, to create a great ecosystem in Tier 2 city like Surat. And that's a dream. So anytime you can call me for any kind of talk, and we are ready to support in every manner. Our president, secretary, or group president Deepak Bhai is always ready to that. So thank you so much once again on behalf of Chamber to give us insight about 0 to 1 as well as venture cap matrix. Though matrix is different, but your suggestions will be very helpful to them. Last, I would like to say, all of you, don't shy. Surat or Tier 2 city has this, nature to shy away to express yourself. Please express yourself. Come to us. We at Chamber give free consultation. I'm always available for you guys to talk. Whatever you want to talk, whatever you want to ask, don't shy away. As they said, English jaruri nathi hotu. If you are in Gujarat, please ask us in Gujarati because we આપણે બધા ગુજરાતી છે તો આવો તમારા કોઈ બી ક્વેશ્ચન હશે, we are ready to help you out to build an ecosystem. પછી તમને હિન્દી આવડવું જરૂરી છે because they understand Hindi well. પરંતુ કોન્ફિડન્ટ રહીને please ask, please come to us. We at Surat and we at Chamber are committed to build an ecosystem. So you guys all and your friends or in your group can ask your friends to come to us. You all can come back with different subjects also and be part of it. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
And under your leadership, we hope to see many unicorns coming out of Surat.
Yeah, I hope so. With all joint efforts of everyone, we will create it.
Thank you, Mayank bhai, for concluding remarks on the panel discussion. Funds up. I finally call Mr. Anil Sarogi for vote of thanks. Thank you.
Namaste friends, time is indeed ticking. I won't take more than 120 seconds. The first and foremost thing that I want to tell is that it was a nice combination of two sessions, wherein the first session talked about 0 to 1 and the second session talked about 1 to 10, that is the growth. So 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10, that was a good combination. And then in the meanwhile, people talked about how are investors or the venture capitalists investing in loss-making companies, that defies, basic finance principles and accounting principles, etc. But then over the Ivy League management schools, there is a very popular subject called behavioral finance, So in finance also, social aspect is coming and behavioral aspect is coming, which is talking about much of pure logic but fuzzy logic. So in finance also, people are taking decisions not basically purely on numbers but what their gut feel says. So it was indeed a very nice session, and more of it was engrossing also. Both the moderators did a great job of engaging the panelists in such a way that it makes sense to the audience. I am extremely thankful to both the moderators, first of all, Kulinji and Manoj Chadwani ji, for taking us through the whole discussion in a very, very lively and interesting manner. Moreover, both the panels had good panelists, Kulin Shah, Agam Shah, Pratik Gadia, then Subodh Jalori and Bhuvan Bijawat ji. All of them had carried a lot of experience with them, which made a lot of sense to this audience. On behalf of Chamber of Commerce, I am extremely thankful to all the 5 panelists for sharing their life experience to this audience. Last but not the least, I am of course thankful to our startup committee for putting together this very nice session. But for SaasBoomi, this program would certainly not have come to this fruition. I am extremely thankful to the entire volunteer team of SaasBoomi, that is Alpesh Vagasia, Vinay Kuvadia, Krunal Vagasia, Dinesh Agrawal, Paresh Ballar, Vishal Virani, Nirav Alagia, Manoj Chadwani ji, our own very own Manoj Chadwani ji, and of course the most important person is Puneet Gajera, who has taken all the pains to put together this whole program. On behalf of Chamber of Commerce,
I must say that the startup committee is going to do wonders for not only the Surat city but for the whole of South Gujarat. You know that this tier 2 concept also is there, but way back in 2006, Thomas Friedman says that the world is flat. So tier 2, tier 1 का तो एक concept ही है. यदि हम उसमें traction लाएंगे तो Surat will also become Bengaluru one day. So I'm extremely thankful to all the panelists, everybody, and this great audience also for honoring our invitation. We'll keep inviting you again and again. Please do come and let us see that we make a vibrant ecosystem in Surat for the startups to thrive. Thank you very much.